Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City Commission meeting this January 23rd, 2024. Thank you all for being here. I don't know who's handling the lights, but it's a little bright.
And they didn't give us that much powder.
It's just, I'm going to have to wear my sunglasses to the meetings. Can we dim the lights a little?
Dim the lights. Ooh.
It's those three.
Yeah, the middle ones.
Okay, so I hope someone's working on those. Okay, all right. Okay, should have kept my sunglasses. So, thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate everybody being here, and we have a fairly shorter than normal agenda, so hopefully we won't have a late night tonight. For those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. And the usual method that we usually follow is that we have a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we go into the consent agenda items, asking any member of the commission if they want to pull any items. If anybody wishes to speak on a consent agenda item tonight, and none of the commissioners have pulled that item, then I will call you and you can make your presentation beforehand, and then we'll vote on it afterwards. We also have presentations normally at a meeting. Tonight there are no presentations, so I know. So sorry. That will help us to move the meeting along as well. So tonight we have the honor of having two fine young ladies who are going to assist me and assist us all in tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. They are Naya Salvucci and Mia De La Torre. Can I ask you both to come up to the podium with me and join me in the pledge? And may I ask you all to please rise.
No, we're not going to say this.
Would you stand close to the microphone? And let us begin the pledge. We'll follow you. Put your hand on your heart, right? And look at the flag. And it's all yours. I pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nice. Can you tell us which school you're from? Which school are you from?
Carson Park.
When you speak in the microphone.
Carson Park Elementary. And we were chosen from the after-school play program.
Very nice. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
Carson Park, I'm your commissioner. Thank you, ladies.
That's for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now I'd like you all to please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst? Commissioner Glassman?
Here.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Here.
Commissioner Sturman?
Here.
Mayor Trentalis?
Here. A couple of agenda announcements to CM5. 2 edits were made to the recommendations section of the CAM. Other than that, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes and the agenda as amended?
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this is Greg. I apologize. CM5 staff would like to request to keep as is the one that was published.
Oh, you want to keep it as is?
Yeah,
Okay, so there are no changes to CM5.
correct.
Okay. All right.
I can explain if you'd like.
Okay.
Well, only yes, because I did have a few questions that, as I mentioned in our pre-agenda meeting. So tell us what's staying the same and what's not.
It has to remain as is, as the donor is specific where it needs to go. So it needs to go within the proximity of Tunnel Top Plaza.
Right.
Okay, so then the language in the recommendation in terms of Riverwalk and/or downtown is not, that's in the original CAM,
It's just, it's the.
under recommendation.
Hold on, let's go there.
But you're saying it has to be in the vicinity of Tunnel Top Park. But then, if you look at the minutes of the Public Art Advisory Board, they specifically said don't put it there. So I just need a little clarification.
Well, the grant requires it,
I understand.
so we don't want to lose the money.
I understand.
So-
So why are we still including the other locations in the recommendation of this CAM? If the grant requires Tunnel Top, why are we mentioning Riverwalk and Downtown Corridor? Or why are we also saying Commission District 2 in the heading when that would be Commission District 4?
All right, so as far as, when we get to CM5, we'll talk about it then.
Okay, I'm just
Right.
answering your questions.
Okay, when we get to CM5, we'll talk about it then. We're not there yet.
No problem.
Pull that off consent then?
We'll need to pull it off consent, yes. Okay, so back to the approval of the minutes and the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting and the agenda for tonight have now been approved. There are no presentations, like I had indicated previously. So has the clerk given me, oh, here they are. Okay, so the only person that is asked to speak is on CM1. This is regarding the 18th Annual Duck Fest Derby, Friday Dining in the Streets, and MOD's 27th Annual Wine, Spirits, and Culinary Celebration. Is Elliot Gerber here? Mr. Gerber.
Do you want to do the polls first?
Let's just see what Mr. Gerber has to say. Oh, you're right, I'm sorry, I didn't ask the commission.
polls,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Hold on, Mr. Gerber, stay there. Commissioner Herbst, do you have any items you wish to pull?
No.
Vice Mayor?
CR1?
CR1. CR1, okay. Commissioner Glassman?
None. Thank you.
Except we want to pull CM5, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought we were automatically were, but for sure. Just for clarification. Thank you.
And Commissioner Sturman?
You got two of them, CM4 and CR3.
Okay, so no one pulled CM1, so Mr. Gerber, please proceed.
Thank you. I am here to speak about dining in the streets. I want to thank Carolyn Bean Smith and Brittany Henry for their helpful communications. Tonight I am here with the support of the Galt Mile Community Association, asking that a compromise be found between the business interests of Blue Jean Blues and the quiet enjoyment of approximately 300 senior living apartments that surround it. The Sun-Times has published several articles examining noise escalation in entertainment districts. At the same time, the city government has created the Noise Control Advisory Committee, whose aim is to recommend solutions that allow businesses to thrive while ensuring a reasonable noise comfort level for residents. One point made in the recent NCAC report is that sound levels from amplified music can be louder on high floors than at ground level. A clear example is Blue Jean Blues. This one-story venue faces north. It sends its highly amplified sound crashing into the 17-story retirement complex that faces it 1 block away. These towers provide a 200-foot wall that bounces, ricochets, and echoes the sound. Blue Jean Blues music invades our homes for 4 continuous hours until it's nearly bedtime. Measurements from my 16th floor apartment often reach readings of 75 to 80 decibels. But there are some common sense solutions. Lower the volume of the amplifiers. Reorient the stage so the amplifiers and the musicians face south or east, where there are no tall buildings. Have a sound technician lower the bass sound waves in the amplifiers. Shorten performance time to 3 hours instead of 4. Or schedule shows only on holiday weekends, not every Friday night. Considering the Noise Control Advisory Committee's findings and with the alternate options in mind, I am requesting that the approval for the Blue Jean Blues permit be tabled until a resolution can be reached. Let's find a balanced solution that considers the desired profits of Blue Jean Blues and the quiet enjoyment of more than 300 elderly neighbors whose lives are impacted every Friday night. Thank you.
Thank you. Which building are you referring to? Is it Coral Ridge?
Yeah.
Coral Ridge, which, south? South?
Well, the original and south are on 34th Street.
Right.
Blue Jean Blues is on 33rd, and the two face each other, but the sound from a one-story building travels up into space and ricochets around all of those buildings. As I said, it's sometimes often louder at my apartment on the 16th floor than it is down on the street.
Well, I think your request has a significant merit. We
Thank
are
you.
trying to reduce the sound impact. Commissioner Herbst, I assume you've been dealing with this.
So, right, once this was brought to our attention, a couple of things are done. One, we're reaching out so that code enforcement can go out there and take decibel readings. What I'd like to do, perhaps, though, is have them come up to your apartment and take a decibel reading from there. So let's make sure that we're gauging the impact at the level that you're speaking to. So,
I feel that the inspectors, very often at street level, 1 block away, around the corner from the music, is much more quiet.
Right.
But the sound goes way up into the sky and is,
well,
is very
and
loud.
we've had this conversation before in the district. I know Fishtails, for example, was also approached and modified where they place their speakers. So the other thing that we're doing is I've asked my staff to reach out to the North Beach Merchants Association so that we can begin a conversation with them as well. I'd like to allow this one to move forward, but in the meantime, I do want to keep working on the larger initiatives so that it is not creating a problem. We could always come back and modify this going forward, I think, but I don't want to hold up this particular approval tonight, but I do want to work with you. I want to have staff work with you. And again, like I said, my assistant is reaching out to the North Beach Merchants and talking to Kathy from Fishtails to see that we can work collaboratively to try and reduce the impact on Coral Ridge Towers.
Thank you, and I'd love to participate.
Okay,
And
great.
yes, my apartment's available to any inspector that wants to come up.
Excellent.
Yeah, if Chris Cooper, if you could assist the gentleman here and get his number and address, we can assist with that.
Perfect.
It brings up a larger question though about amplified music outdoors. If this is happening every Friday for 4 hours, and it completely disturbs your quiet enjoyment, I have a problem with that. I mean, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. They have an indoor space.
They do.
Which they can amplify music until the cows come home. But as far as coming outdoors, I mean, now they're impacting not just your apartment, but the dozens of others, plus the adjacent restaurants and so forth, who may not want to participate in the style, the quality of entertainment that is provided by this particular place. So, I mean, there's a larger issue here than just what you're presenting tonight, and so,
Mayor, building on that, Greg, can we modify this going forward if we find out that this is problematic? Or are we locked in if we approve the 4 hours? Can we approve this with a conditional, I don't want to say conditional use, that's more of a land use term, but.
Maybe 2 warnings?
Well, I'm just wondering if again, if we go over there and we find that this continues to be problematic, if we have the ability to reduce the hours, along the lines of what the mayor's saying. Because what we have is a slightly nuanced conversation here, Mayor. So this is an area that is really trying to develop the businesses over there. We've experienced a lot of closed storefronts over there. We've had several restaurants close, and we're struggling economically over there. And so we're trying to balance out the concerns of the long-term residents, who are also the patrons of these restaurants and clubs. So I want to try and find a middle ground where the businesses can be successful. That's the whole point of the dining in the street thing, is to draw more folks to this neighborhood so that we can increase the economic vitality of the North Beach Shops area. It's somewhat unique in District 1, and we're doing our best to encourage people to come there and promote activity. This is one of the events that we're using. It's kind of like the concerts that we do down in the North Beach and certain other parts of the city. We do this over in Holiday Park all summer long, where we do the summer concert series. We do this on, once a month on Sundays with the jazz, and I know we've had complaints from the symphony on that. So anytime we try and promote activity at a lot of these locations, we wind up running into the same problem. So it's how do we juggle the residents who live there with the necessity of attracting people to the area so that we can promote economic vitality.
Well, the thing is, John, I think we could have outdoor entertainment, but it doesn't have to be blasting in people's ears.
No, I agree. And again, as I lived one block away from Holiday Park for 12 years.
Right.
And I enjoyed those summer concerts from my patio all summer long. I didn't have to go sit out there in the park. I could sit on my patio and have my adult beverage of choice and listen to the music. And so I get it. I understand the problem because I've experienced it myself. And again, we do those summer concert series, and they're very popular, very well attended. There's huge crowds out there, and everybody loves it.
Right.
But there is an impact on the neighborhood. There's an impact on those neighbors that are adjacent to the park. And again, we've had the same thing. I've sat here and listened to complaint after complaint from folks that live at the Symphony.
Right.
About the music that comes from the
Esplanade
river
Park.
and from the Esplanade across the way, because it echoes across the water. So this is a problem that I think we have throughout the city. It's certainly this is bringing it up for conversation, but it's not limited just to this particular area. Everywhere that we do these kinds of events to attract and revitalize, we run the risk of impacting the existing neighbors.
So I think what you were getting at is maybe allowing the approval to go forward, subject to city review of appropriate noise tolerances to be determined at a later date.
And maybe reduced hours, as has been suggested, and maybe repositioning the speakers. I think there are ways that we can work with the businesses to come to an accommodation.
Yes, Mr. City Attorney.
Yeah, we have the ability to change the approval in the agreement that will give the manager the authority to either suspend or revoke if they do not comply.
Okay.
All right? So we'll
Let's
have
do
to make
that.
a slight modification to the agreement to do that, but we should do that with your
Okay,
approval.
then can I introduce a motion with that language in it, please?
All right, which motion is this now?
Well, let him recite it. So the motion is going to be to approve it, subject to the city manager having
Authority to suspend or revoke if the violation would occur.
No,
Right.
Dean, I do have what is this on here? Which item is it?
This is
C1.
CM1.
Okay, I think
Second
we-
item. This is
CM1.
regarding,
I think we haven't pulled CM1 though, have we?
Yes. No, we haven't. But he's.
No, we need to pull it and then we could do that, I think.
Well, wait a minute. He's addressing CM1, and he's now making a motion. So, all right, technically,
A motion
you're
to pull
pulling-
it, right.
Well, technically, the Commissioner Herbst is pulling CM1, and he's moving
Correct.
to approve it, subject to the city manager
Right.
having the authority to amend or revoke the approval.
Yes.
thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate your involvement.
Do you want to call the roll? Well, we need a second.
Yeah. Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and we wish the best of success for all the events, and let's just try to be good neighbors. That's all. Now, the next one that was pulled is CM5.
Wait.
CM4.
Wait.
Excuse me.
No,
CM.
wait.
What?
Dean, Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
we pulled CM1. I thought we were voting on the rest of them without the ones that were pulled. We never
No,
voted on.
we haven't gone there yet.
So
pulling
we're gonna vote on the individual
You're-
items and
we're
then
at
go
CM
back to the ones
I
that were
want-
not
I'm go-
pulled?
I'm- We want to vote on, we're going to vote, we're going to address each one that's pulled, and then we'll vote on the balance all at once.
Okay, good, because we usually do it the other way, but that's fine.
Well, tonight, there's a lot of pulls, so.
No, I just want to know what we're voting on. That's
Okay,
perfectly fine.
all right.
Don't-
CM4.
Okay. CM4 is very quick. It's just administrative. I spoke to the city attorney. He advised me that I need to abstain or recuse myself of this particular item, and that I have to pull this in order to do that. And that's the only issue that I have.
Oh, because you need to abstain on that?
Correct.
Okay, so does someone want to move CM4 so we can vote on that separately so that the.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay, let's call a vote on CM4.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman.
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. And Commissioner Sturman abstains.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's now move on to CM5. So this is for clarification purposes. The sculpture that was being donated to the city and being approved is going to be located at the Tunnel Top Park. Is there any question regarding that now?
Well, we would have to change the CAM under title in parentheses says Commission District 2. That would be Commission District 4, not 2.
That's fine.
That's fine. And then I just wanted to make sure, for clarification purposes, again,
Going forward, the donor could certainly be consulted with and see if they want to, because they're already donating one sculpture for the beach, so which is District 2. But this particular sculpture was supposed to be in the Tunnel Top Park area. I just want to clarify that. That's all.
understood.
All
And I
right.
just want to make sure,
Yes,
because
sir.
when I read the minutes of the Public Art Advisory Board, it was mentioned that the donor had agreed, the artist had agreed to a reduced price of $350,000, and then it mentioned plus $60,000 for base and site work. So I just want to make sure that what's in front of us tonight for 363, obviously that doesn't equal the 410,000 in the minutes of the Public Art and Advisory Board. So I just want to make sure which one it is, and I want just some clarification to understand that the 363 is going to be the all-in total cost with base and site work being paid for at the expense of the estate.
Of the donor.
The 350 plus 60,000 install, right?
The minutes of the Public Art Advisory Board says 350 for the artwork and 60 for base and site work.
Yeah.
That's
what we forecast.
410,000. Excuse
Yeah.
me?
That's what we're forecasting to do.
Right, and we're
But-
just accepting the donation, and they're going to pay for the whole thing.
I understand, but there's an issue then.
What's the issue?
The issue is that it adds up to 410,000. The CAM says that it's 363,000 and installed at the sole expense of the estate, which to me would include the base and site work. So I'm just trying to get clarification on that extra $50,000.
Okay, I don't see the confusion, but just so that there's no confusion, the estate is paying for everything, whatever the amount is.
Well, that contradicts what the city manager
I'm
just
telling
said.
you
Okay,
right
okay,
now.
okay. Well, I'm just, I'm just going by what I'm reading in the backup. I'm just going by what the city manager just
Okay,
said.
well, Josh, would you
Josh,
please come up to the
so-
podium?
Yeah, Josh is available to explain further.
Push the button.
Sorry, thank you. Joshua Carden, the Cultural Affairs Officer for the City of Fort Lauderdale. Yes, we plan on purchasing the sculpture for the $363,000. That's the artist price plus the gallery fee and tax, and then the sculpture will be installed at the sole expense of the estate.
So the base and site work that's included in the minutes of the Public Art Advisory Board, that extra 60 is being assumed by the estate.
Yes, sir.
That's all I needed to know for the clarification. Thank you,
Okay,
Mayor.
very good.
Thank
You want
you.
to move the item?
I'd be happy to.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that item is approved. Thank you so much. When is that going to be installed? 4 or 5 months. When is the?
It's a big horse.
When is
big
the? Isn't the first piece supposed to be installed like any day now?
Any day in the next few weeks. We just got our building permit yesterday morning, so we should have it installed in the next few weeks.
Few weeks.
With an opening at the end of February, ideally.
What's the first piece, Josh?
It's the Mark Quinn
Okay.
Beautiful Sublime. That's going to go in the beautiful stainless steel shell.
Okay.
Sorry, tongue twister.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. It gets easier, folks.
Yeah.
The next item that was pulled is CR3. Excuse me, CR1. Sorry. CR1, resolution approving City of Fort Lauderdale fiscal year 2024 not-for-profit grant participation agreement with Nova Southeastern University.
Yes, okay. All right. In regards to the reason we are asking for it to be pulled, in regards to the information on the back, in the background of the CAM, it says the city will reimburse Nova Southeastern University Art Museum for reasonable costs of security, janitorial service, and services associated with use of the auditorium. Could we have a dollar amount, estimated dollar amount for that?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Laura Reese. So we've been working with Bonnie from the Nova Art Museum, and really the conversations we've been having is, they're open to letting the city use the space. They just wanted to make sure if we're asking them to add additional services in order to serve our meetings, whatever those are, that we're paying for those costs. So we haven't yet gotten to the place where we're getting direct quotes or figuring out all of that yet, but Bonnie's here. I don't know if she would want to say more. But the concept is just we would pay for any cost that we cause.
If Bonnie could come. Bonnie, would you please
So,
join
so,
us?
so my understanding, Bonnie Clearwater, she's the CEO of the museum, and while she's coming up to the podium, it's our understanding that we're not paying for the space, we're just paying for any out-of-pocket expenses that are incurred.
Yeah, so we would not be paying any rental expense. As part of the agreement, they'll be giving us free rental.
Right.
But so, for example, if we need to install additional cables for our IT, we'll be paying for those costs through a reimbursement with their organization. So I'll let Bonnie say more.
Good evening. How are you? Bonnie Clearwater, Director, Chief Curator, NSU Art Museum, Fort Lauderdale. Yes, our home is going to be your home for at least 6 months, I think.
Casa, su casa.
Yes, and we're happy to welcome you all there. You're going to be using the auditorium, which we typically do not have to maintain during the day, except if we have an event, which isn't that often. So we need, well, it is, but if we need to contract additional security for the use of the for that auditorium, as well as additional maintenance, housekeeping, because our small bathrooms, to accommodate all the extra people who are going to be coming for the meetings, are going to need extra cleaning to keep it tidy. So it's none of this has been figured out yet, because sometimes your meetings could go on 1 o'clock in the morning. So it's going to be based on some kind of average as we move forward.
Okay. In regards to security, I believe this may even be a question for city manager. Our police go where we go, correct?
You have a sergeant at arms,
Okay,
and
we
we
have a
also
sergeant at
have
arms.
2 security personnel as well.
Okay.
However, not sure if she requires security for her area of the museum.
Yeah, well, we need, because they're responsible for anything that happens in our plaza and in our space, and also to open, unlock and lock that space. And that person's that's an extra cost to the museum in order to have someone contracted to do that.
Okay. How do we get an estimate of this? I'm just curious I understand that we're being afforded this space basically at no cost, but there are additional costs that we have not identified.
So I would imagine that Ms. Bonnie Clearwater contracts services via certain levels of procurement that are bound by government.
Yeah, right. And it's all the same according to the contract. It's the contractors that the university itself uses, and they meet the requirements.
Yes.
And they will be contracted on behalf of your use
Yeah.
of the space. But you've asked us to cover that expense, and we'd get reimbursed by it.
Right. So we would be using her contractors that are already clean, but only for our use. So whatever that is, and I would imagine that her rates have gone through a competitive bid process. So it's not going to be an exaggerated rate. It would be rates that are procured through a similar process that we do.
Okay.
We can-
Just like I said, when we had this conversation in our pre-agenda, that was the question: how much money? I won't say more, but how much money are we referring to that will be considered for reimbursement? And also, you said 6 months, but it's actually 9 months,
It's
right?
9 months.
Possibly 9 months.
It could be longer.
Laura, what is the time period that we're getting this for?
Yeah, so March meetings would be the ones that begin at the NSU space, and it would continue through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
It would
September.
be March,
Yeah.
April, May, June, July, August, September, 7 months.
7 months.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Laura. So do I?
I'm sorry, Mayor, before we move on.
Yes, sir.
When we can get those numbers, could it be made available for
Oh, yeah.
the public, how much those funds are, just for
I
transparency?
guess we'll know after our first meeting. kind
Yeah.
of.
So what we can do too is we'll work with Ms. Clearwater and create a forecast
Yes.
of what it will take to clean, and we'll write a memo and inform you. If for any reason we need to make any adjustments, we'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just chime in one more? Just to kind of ease your mind on this one. So the city has to pre-approve all of the costs as part of the agreement. So by the time we have the first meeting, we can report back. Here was the startup costs, and here's what we anticipate for this meeting, if that helps.
Okay, that would
So,
be
all right,
helpful.
thank you.
Would someone like to introduce CR1?
So moved.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a City of Fort Lauderdale fiscal year 2024 not-for-profit grant participation agreement with Nova Southeastern University, Inc., authorizing execution of the grant participation agreement and providing for severability and effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
I'm voting no because I would feel more comfortable knowing what that reasonable cost would be. My answer is no.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that resolution is approved. CR3, resolution authorizing city manager to execute a workforce housing incentive agreement. Commissioner Sturman.
Oh, yeah, Greg, just one simple question. In that, I've seen two things that are not consistent. Very simple question. The exemption, is that 15 years or 50 years?
I think it's 15.
Because it said 50 at one point. Just wanted to clarify that for the record.
No, 1-5.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Would you like to introduce the resolution?
Yes.
Resolution's been introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a workforce housing incentive agreement with Andrews Apartments LLC, delegating authority to the city manager to execute such agreement together with any supplemental documents in connection therewith and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and CR3 is now approved. With regard to the balance of the consent agenda items, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and the balance of the consent agenda items are now approved. If anyone's here on any of those items, they've now been approved. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Otherwise, your item has now been approved. Moving on to the motions, M1, motion approving an event agreement and request for music exemption for the St. Jerome Catholic Church and School Festival 2024. Someone like to move the item?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and M1 is now approved. M2, motion approving event agreements, related road closures, and request for music exemption for American Lung Association 28th Annual Las Olas Wine and Food Festival and Big Game Watch Party. Big Game Watch Party.
That's the Super Bowl, Mayor.
Yeah, right.
Thank you. I know you're wondering what that is, but
Yes.
that's what that is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Would someone like to
So
move
moved.
the item?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and M2 is now approved. M3, this is a motion approving agreements for rental of barricades and equipment through various vendors, a 2-year contract. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
It's a lot of barricades.
It's a lot of barricades.
1.4 mil.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and M3 is now approved. M4, motion authorizing purchase of property insurance through Lloyd's of London. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and M4 is now approved. R1. This is appointment of board and committee members. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the names into the record?
Yes, for the February 6, 2024 resolution for the Central City Redevelopment Advisory Committee, Troy Liggett, consensus nominated by Commissioner Glassman. And for tonight's resolution, Aviation Advisory Board, David Ash, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Education Advisory Board, Juliette Gray Williams, nominated by Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman. Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Committee, Gerald Angeli, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. Michael Marshall, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Insurance Advisory Board, Steve Botkin, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. David Cooley, nominated by Commissioner Herbst. And Tina Gelman, nominated by Commissioner Herbst. Marine Advisory Board, Robert Washington, nominated by Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman. Noise Control Advisory Committee, William Brown, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. Tim Petrillo, nominated by Commissioner Herbst. Rocco Ferreira, nominated by Commissioner Herbst. Stephen Weiss, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Chad McCory, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Dev Motwani, nominated by Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman. Gina Ellis, nominated by Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman. Stephen Hudson, nominated by Commissioner Sturman. Ralph Stone, nominated by Commissioner Sturman. Nuisance Abatement Board, Joel Slotnick, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. Glenn Lindsay, nominated by Commissioner Herbst. The 2024 Walk of Fame Induction Committee, Alexandra Bagwell, nominated by Commissioner Sturman. And we have one additional name for the Citizens Police Review Board, Alex Jean, nominated by Commissioner Sturman, if we could add that as amended.
Okay, so would someone like to introduce the resolution as amended?
Introduced as amended.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, appointing or nominating, if applicable, board and committee members as set forth in the exhibit attached here to and made a part hereof. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman? Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and thank you for those individuals who are committing their time and efforts to adding to the efforts to make Fort Lauderdale the place you never want to leave. So moving on to R2, resolution approving and ratifying a First Amendment to the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Fort Lauderdale and the Teamsters Local Union 769, affiliated with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. That's why you're here tonight. Yeah. Anyone have any questions with regard to R2? There being none, would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Introduced.
Introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving and ratifying a First Amendment to collective bargaining agreement between the City of Fort Lauderdale and Teamsters Local Union Number 769, affiliated with International Brotherhood of Teamsters, and authorizing execution of the First Amendment to collective bargaining agreement. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and R2 is now approved. There's no drop agreement with commissioners, is there? I guess it's up to the voters.
Another conversation. Some
Yeah.
of us don't have FRS.
The vice mayor and I know that we're not eligible for
Yeah,
any
we're
of
not
these
eligible
benefits.
for FRS.
Even though the city pays for our contributions to the Florida retirement system. I had asked for that to actually be looked at for legislation on our state legislative program. I don't see it listed. I still think that we should be working on that with our staff, because that really is just outrageous from a taxpayer perspective and also from a benefits perspective. It just makes absolutely no sense.
I don't disagree
While
with
we
you.
were in Tallahassee, there was a conversation with one of the representatives. So there was some suggestions given to Daphne in a direction to move. So it has been, in a sense, conversated. It was a
Was
conversation.
that with one of our representatives?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Great. Thank you for that.
It doesn't really make any sense, does
And
it?
it's a lot of money that the city is paying for us as a contribution for the two of us for the Florida retirement system, and we are not eligible for any of the benefits from the Florida retirement system
Well, maybe you
as a
should
city
join.
employee.
Maybe you should join the Teamsters. They can get things done.
Did we vote on the item yet? Oh, we voted already?
Yeah.
Well, then you know how I feel.
And then
Okay.
also, I
God
believe
bless
there's
the
actually
Teamsters.
20 employees within the city. So it's just not the two
Right,
of us.
yes.
We don't want to make it seem like
Right.
we're here beating a drum
You got
for
a
us.
new
but
class
this
of
is for
constituents, Ann.
New
other
class. Yes.
employees with the city as well.
I think the city manager wanted to say something.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's the
Daphne
city
did
manager.
alert me that there was some conversations amongst policymakers, so we'll draft a memo and send to you all with that update, what it means and what we're expecting.
And maybe we can also just reiterate what the vice mayor said. Maybe we need to refresh the memory of our elected officials in Tallahassee that we're still hoping to see something with regard to that, and really spelling out the inequity and spelling out how many city employees are involved, how many on the commission dais are involved, and what that adds up to dollar-wise that the city is paying into a system where these people are not eligible for benefits. It really is. It's just nonsense. Thank you.
Okay. R3 is a resolution approving amendment number 2 to the master lease agreement, approving the declaration of restrictive covenants, approving the amended and restated declaration of covenants and restrictions of the Bahia Mar Master Association, approving revisions to the quitclaim deed, and ratifying the interlocal agreement. So does anyone have any questions with regard to this? All right, there being none, would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Please call the roll.
No, well, so can we just ask a couple very quick questions about
Yeah,
this?
of course.
Can I just have just two very simple questions, if the developer or the city want to come up?
Who are you asking to come up?
I guess Mr. Tate, if you can, he might be the one to answer that.
Oh,
Or somebody from the city attorney's office, just two very simple things.
Mr. Tate, would you please come to the podium? Mr. Hernandez.
Mr. Tate, thank you.
You could
once
please push the button at the base of the microphone.
Gentlemen, thank you once again for coming before us. It's welcome to our city hall. Two very simple things, and we discussed this very briefly. So, just for clarification, I guess there's a 20-year span that it has to start construction, or the air rights revert back to the city. And I think we had spoken, just for clarification, what happens at the end of 80, 90 years if the building does get demolished, or I mean the air rights survive after that, or?
So the air rights are in perpetuity. That's the entire idea and concept of conveying the fee simple title to the air rights, so that they would be fee simple title.
Okay, thank you. And the other question I had for you,
can I add to that? If they don't build,
Right, within 20 years.
right, then
Right,
it
right.
reverts back to the city.
Right.
Right. So that's important. So-
That, yeah, that we could, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
That's actually a very
okay.
good point. And the other question is, there's I just had a question. If you could just explain the conveyance of the air rights to third parties from the CDD, how does, to individual unit owners? You had mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, so I think, well, Jimmy, tell me, I think that.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, so the plan is initially, the air rights which is that air parcel from the ground upward until
3
the
feet
extent.
up. 3 feet up.
Right, will be conveyed to the CDD. CDD builds a podium upon that, and then there's going to be excess air rights above that upon which each building is going to be built. And I would imagine in this case, probably each building is going to be developed by a separate entity, in which they might have different ownership and investors and such. And so each one of those entities that is going to be the ultimate builder, developer of whatever project is going in those air rights is ultimately going to be conveyed those rights so that they can build it. Now, those that become condos, those air rights would basically be submitted to condominium ownership. The individual units within the building would be created within that, and then there'd be some area of common elements amongst that portions of those air parcels that are created for that purpose.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yep.
I appreciate it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And
Actually, Jimmy, if you don't mind, while I have you up there. So I had a request come in, and I conveyed that to Mr. Tate. And that request was for additional amenities above and beyond what was previously agreed to when this was coming forward to us. So I reached out to Mr. Tate. I expressed the request that we were getting, and he very generously offered to include an additional $50,000 towards these amenities. So, Jimmy, I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about that a little bit and how we might do this.
Okay, so basically, as Commissioner Herbst stated, some of the constituents within one of the districts, I'm not really sure which districts, asked for non-motorized floating devices, kayaks, sea kayaks, paddle boards, et cetera. So Commissioner Herbst reached out to us to see if the CDD would be able to include that in the interlocal agreement, and I reminded him that we're not in privity with the CDD. But if it was important to the city, we would figure out a way to do it, and I offered to donate it with my brother and partners. If there's no other means, we'll just donate the money to the city. And I'm working closely with the city manager to figure out the best method to do that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Summerstein, did you want to speak on this or just to answer questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, no one else is asked to speak on this. Anyone wish to speak on R3? There being none, any other questions? If not, I believe the resolution has been introduced. If we could just please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving Amendment Number 2 to the Master Lease Agreement between the City of Fort Lauderdale as lessor and Ron Bahia Mar LLC as lessee for city-owned real property known as Bahia Mar, approving the declaration of restrictive covenants by and between the lessor, the lessee, and Bahia Mar Community Development District, approving the amended and restated declaration of covenants and restrictions of Bahia Mar Master Association, Inc., approving revisions to the quitclaim deed, ratifying the interlocal agreement by and between Bahia Mar Community Development District, Ron Bahia Mar LLC, and the City of Fort Lauderdale, authorizing the proper city officials to execute the instruments and any ancillary or supplemental documents related thereto, repealing any and all resolutions in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
No.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that resolution is now approved. Good luck. Invite us to the groundbreaking. And this is it now, right?
This is it.
Okay. R4, okay. Resolution appointing special counsel to investigate a complaint involving a city commissioner. I have a couple people who signed up to speak. Mark Dickerman, followed by Ted and Sarah.
I've heard two different versions of the events that are causing this. I'm kind of neutral on it, and I hope that in the future our commissioners are civil to each other. It's necessary in order for us to move forward with what needs to be done in this city, including infrastructure, tunnel versus bridge, and so forth. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this investigation pans out, and hopefully it's going to be $25,000 well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ted and Sarah. Ted?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ted and Sarah. Boy, and I thought the dominatrix ladies on that meeting was going to be the craziest thing I ever saw at a city commission meeting. But, I really don't want to talk about, this thing that happened exactly. I just want to talk about all of you guys up there representing us. We're the city that you don't want to leave. We're the cosmopolitan city. We want to be up there with the upper echelon of the cities. We want to be known, as a legitimate city. And come on, we're Joy Carollo away from being Miami. And, we look, you guys are elected and by the people. And we just need to make sure that we have professionalism at these meetings and just, guide us so we have faith in the city commission, in decisions that you're making. And what I saw that night was just, it was shocking. And you're representing us, represent us a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? So anyone wish to speak on the item on the commission? Well, I do.
Okay.
Did you want to speak? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to understand. I want to understand how, from a process perspective, we've got two firms offered. Are we supposed to choose one? What's the intent, Mr. Attorney?
That is correct. This is not something that could be done in-house just because of the tie-in to the manager. It couldn't be done by my office because I report to you all. So I went outside to talk to Labor Council.
Sure.
And he advised me get somebody completely independent of me, the city, and he recommended at least two firms, two that he's dealt with. This fellow Michael Elkins and this lady Rhea Patagoon. He would pick one or the other. The $25,000 amount is a.
So when we introduce the resolution, though, we introduce the resolution
with
with one of those particular ones named. Okay, that's all I wanted to understand.
That's
Thank
correct. That's correct.
So I think we all know where this is coming from. Apparently, after one of the meetings, or during the course of one of the meetings, but after a vote, there was an exchange between one of the commissioners, Commissioner Glassman, and an employee, one of the commission assistants to Commissioner Sturman. I don't know what happened, and I suppose that's what this investigation is about, but I really regret that it's being taken at this level. I think a mere apology might have been sufficient, and I'm hoping that maybe we can still use that as an appropriate way to resolve this. I don't want to see the city spend $25,000 on something that I think will ultimately, we will ultimately be informed that, this would not rise to any level of retribution or a reprimand. Again, I don't know all this. I don't know all the facts. I think that's, I'm just getting it secondhand. But, I think the city, the city commissioner Sturman, when he wrote his op-ed piece, I think that was published in the Sun Sentinel. I think the intent was to ask the commission to move forward in a positive way. Let's not look for opportunities to try to undercut one another. Let's not look for opportunities to, gotcha kind of things. I think I took it in the tone of, let's try to work in a collegial fashion, and let's not let the past hold us back. I think this will do just that. It will hold us back. I don't think it's going to help the commission. I don't think it's going to benefit anybody. The person who is the aggrieved claimant, I think, there are ways to resolve this without having to go this far. I don't believe anything that was done was that egregious based on the things that I was told, and I just don't support this. So, whatever you guys want to do, that's up to you. But I just don't think that's the direction this commission should be going in, investigating for alleged grievances such as this. So,
Mayor, could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I remember several years ago, we had a complaint filed by your chief of staff against one of the commissioners. How was that handled?
That was done through internally,
but we did have an investigation, though, right?
I don't remember how that was actually handled. I believe it was resolved with it was resolved without any further. It was just. I don't know. To be honest with you, John, I don't remember all the details how that was done. That was where my chief of staff made a claim that one of the other commissioners tried to belittle him. But I don't believe it really went beyond just a discussion, and I think it was actually an apology. So I don't think it really went to the level of trying to reprimand or fine anybody. I just think it kind of just resolved itself.
All right. I thought, from my recollection at the time, I thought that there was an investigation because I believe there were actually 2 commission assistants that made that claim. So I think the investigation is an appropriate way to do it, but I also understand the concern about independence that the city attorney would have. I don't think doing it in-house actually is the appropriate way to model that type of an investigation. So I would support this.
Okay, it would be a conflict for me to do it ethically. I wanted to point out that this evolved after that particular night, January 9th, from a lawyer for the affected woman who demanded, and that's the word, an investigation, that's the word, and then subsequently the aggrieved person sent a letter on Mr. Sturman's letterhead. I don't think that was intended, but she did do that, reiterating the claim. So again, it merits investigation. I don't anticipate it'll be anywhere near the $25,000. I picked an arbitrary number to get through the charter of what I needed to do. I don't anticipate this taking more than 10 hours for either lawyer to interview the people, look at the tapes, talk to the people, and come to a conclusion.
I would like to say, to add into the conversation, we have a individual the victim who has made a request, a claim for an investigation, and I don't think that would be fair to that person who has experienced and is experiencing whatever it was that occurred. If they feel like this is merit of an investigation, I think that we should allow that investigation. I don't see where, only thing I can see, and if it was any type of a situation, if someone has a complaint, it should be investigated. So I stand on the investigation, and I agree with independent special counsel.
Okay. So do we know the hourly rate for any of these folks?
Mr. Elkins is $300 an hour, and Mrs. Rangoon is $350 an hour.
Okay. Okay. Someone want to make a motion? All right, someone introduce a resolution. If they introduce the resolution, they have to fill in the blank.
Introduced.
Introducing what, though?
I would go with the first individual, Rhea Chattergoon.
Okay.
If I pronounce that properly?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. R4 has been introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, appointing the law firm of Rhea and Chattergoon, Esquire, RC Law Group, to act as special counsel to the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in connection with an investigation of a complaint regarding an alleged incident at the January 9, 2024 City Commission meeting, prescribing the compensation to be paid to such special counsel and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Before I do recuse myself, I was not going to say anything to my colleagues, but just to correct the record, because I think that's important. The Vice Mayor mentioned someone as a victim, so I would take exception to that word. I would not classify the person that she's alluding to as the victim. Secondly, just to answer Commissioner Herbst's question and recollection, actually, the incident that he was referring to several years ago from the mayor's chief of staff, that actually went just straight to our Office of Professional Standards. And it was the Office of Professional Standards that handled that investigation. They issued a report, and then that was that. Nothing happened after that report. The report was distributed to all of us on the commission, and that was that. So I just want to make sure that I'm just setting the record straight. I'm going to request that I recuse myself from this vote, and I actually will look forward very much to the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry. Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Okay, before I vote, just one quick thing for the record that the city attorney had alluded to. Just to reiterate, by mistake, this had gone out on my letterhead, which gives the impression it came from my office, and that was a clerical mistake. This did not come from my office, and it's not my letterhead. This is, so just make that separation. On the vote, yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
No. So the resolution is approved. I'll move on to R5. When do we expect this a resolution to this resolution?
If this took more than a month, I'd be shocked.
I'm sorry?
If this took more than a month, I'd be really shocked.
Okay, thank you.
I expect 2 weeks. It should be resolved within a couple weeks.
Okay. R5, quasi-judicial resolution amending a site plan level 4 development permit regarding 551 Bayshore SPE. You're not going to stay for the rest of the fun, Mr. Mr. Tate? No? There's always more fun.
As Harry Stewart used to say, he's enjoyed this as much as he can stand.
This is regarding 551 Bayshore SPE LLC, the Olakino House. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Herbst, do you have any disclosures?
Yes, I do. I met with Courtney Crush on January 5th.
Vice Mayor?
No disclosures.
I did meet with the developer and Ms. Crush. Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I met with Ms. Crush on November 22nd, 2023, and just to be on the safe side, I did have meetings on the original site plan that I want to enter into the record for the approval on 11/16/2020, July 7th, 2021, and September 2nd, 2021.
And Commissioner Sturman?
I did meet with the Honorable Courtney Crush.
Okay, so we have 3 people who signed up to speak. Karen Turner, Courtney Crush, that's probably just for questions, and Monty Lawani, are you still here? There you are. You're here on behalf of the CBA? Okay, so Karen, you want to come up? Where's Karen? Oh, there you are. You want to come up?
That's for questions.
You're good? There's no presentation. Did you want to speak? Okay, come on up to the podium.
Ms. Crush, do you have a presentation? Okay.
If anyone has any questions of Ms. Crush, we'll be happy to have them answered. But Ms. Turner, you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commission. Well, I was expecting the presentation. I've only seen a small smidgen of the new building that's
Well,
proposed.
is it not in the backup? Let's check. Let's make sure we're not There's an Exhibit 3 has the application. There's 18 pages.
It's
of
an
the,
addition to it.
There's the narrative. Is there an elevation here attached? Yep, it's all here. Is there something else that you have a question about?
No, not necessarily a question. I just met the developer for the first time this evening, and as representing Bayshore Embassy as a resident, just that we had an agreement put in place with the former developer, and so we've discussed it tonight and hope that we can move forward with that. And
Is your client here tonight?
Mhm.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That'd be great.
So they're here in case we have any questions for them. So
Wonderful.
go ahead.
Oh, that's basically, I mean, there's other.
Do you want to speak or do
No,
you not want to
I
speak?
don't have a
know.
question. I don't have, what I'm trying to say is I don't have a question for Courtney at this time.
Oh.
So
All right, did you have a chance to read the backup?
I did not.
Okay.
So,
All right, that's probably why there's some confusion, because there's
Yes.
plenty of backup to support the resolution that's now being proposed tonight. So,
Gotcha.
all right, I'll tell you what, I'll call you afterwards. Maybe after other people have spoken, you may want to speak again.
that would be great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Monty. Good evening.
Good evening.
Are you here on behalf of the Central Beach
Central
Alliance?
Beach Alliance, yes.
Okay, great.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Monty Lalwani, and I'm here today on behalf of the Central Beach Alliance to give an update about the Ritz-Carlton Residences, formerly known as Olakino Residences, Olakino House.
Olakino House.
Sorry. On August 12th, 2021, Courtney Crush presented the original project on 551 Bayshore Drive to our membership. Although I do not have the exact vote numbers with me tonight, the vote did pass in favor to approve the project as presented, which was then for 65 units and 120 feet in height. On January 18, 2024, Courtney, along with the new Ritz residence team, came back to present a revision to this project, adding 18 units for a total of 83 units and taking the height from 120 feet to 142 feet. The Central Beach Alliance does not re-vote on projects that come back to the membership as long as the revisions meet code. According to the ULDR, 144 feet in height is allowable, provided that the structure has a maximum floor plate of 16,000 square feet. The proposed floor plate of the Ritz-Carlton Residences is 12,330 feet, with the 10,510 square feet plate at the penthouse level. Furthermore, out of the 60-some people that were on the Zoom call during Courtney's presentation, there was only one question regarding the height, including the mechanical equipment. I believe Courtney might be, I didn't know if Courtney was presenting tonight, but it doesn't look like she is.
We can ask that question.
Yeah, I believe, though, the person that did raise the question, Courtney had mentioned that she was going to reach out to this resident, close by resident, and she probably already has. I did not ask her tonight.
Sure.
If you have any further questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did the applicant make a recent presentation to the Central Beach Alliance?
Yes, they did. January 18th.
Okay, like last week.
Last week, yeah, right at our membership meeting last week.
Okay.
They came in, they presented the new building, and it wasn't, it just went up a little bit, just another 12 feet. So it's still within code, and nobody presented any questions or comments besides that one.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're
Have a
very
great
welcome.
evening.
Christina Ciani, did you want to speak? Did I pronounce that correctly? You did.
Good? Okay. Well, I'm a native of East Fort Lauderdale, and I have been the Director of Luxury Sales with Douglas Elliman at the Ritz-Carlton, Fort Lauderdale Beach from 2017 to the present. I consider myself an expert of the brand as I have been working with it for 7 years. Palm Beach, Naples, Sunny Isles, and Pompano Beach are all currently developing Ritz-Carlton residential-only buildings. Fort Lauderdale has long been ahead of the branded luxury property trend with the existing Ritz-Carlton opened in 2008. It has become important for the continued sophistication of our beach to offer a Ritz-Carlton residential-only building on the stunning intracoastal side of our barrier island. Approving the Ritz-Carlton residences is extremely beneficial for our community. Luxury hotel branded properties are the most important trend in real estate and should be cultivated to elevate our city. Fort Lauderdale at this time does not offer any other branded luxury properties directly on the intracoastal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dan, did you want to say anything? Dan Texera?
Good evening, Mayor, District Commissioner, fellow commissioners. I'm speaking as a homeowner in North Beach Village. I reside part-time and the other part-time in John Herbst District on Middle River Drive and Sunrise Intercoastal, but I do have a residence at the Four Seasons. Speaking as an owner, this is something that I can say that most of the other owners in the building, when we bought there, we wanted to make sure that Bayshore Drive and Birch Road becomes less of a concrete city and more green space. What this developer is bringing, and I'm very privileged to have met with the Witkoffs, who is a very high-end luxury developer. Bringing that to Bayshore Drive, I think, is very important. I think the pedestrian experience of the shade trees, the sidewalks would be very important to the neighborhood. A lot of you know me from the Ritz-Carlton when we opened that up in 2008. I'm a huge fan of the Ritz-Carlton. I think it's been a big benefit to the city. So I think that this is a win-win situation for everyone. I've been to all of the CBA meetings when this has been presented, and overwhelmingly, people on the beach have been very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtney, is there anything you would like to add to anything that's been said with regard to, okay. Karen, did you want to come back and speak at all? Are you good? Okay, great. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, there being none. Someone moved to close public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll. Where's our clerk?
Is there a microphone in the
Where's our
bedroom?
clerk?
Are we allowed to do that on our own, or does he have to do
He's
that
got to
for us?
record their vote.
I'll call the vote.
Okay.
All right, so we have Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman. Yes. Commissioner Sturman.
I think.
This is to close
No,
public hearing.
you're the wrong. You're out of order.
It's okay. It doesn't matter. We're just closing public hearing.
Okay. Well. Okay. Yes.
Commissioner
It's a
Hurd.
non-controversial item.
I know. I want to go to the right order here. You're out of order, but you're literally out of order. But go ahead.
Commissioner Herbst.
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. So public hearing is now closed on R5. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
It's been introduced. Please call the roll.
And Commissioner Glassman, that's approving?
I'm sorry?
Approving?
Yes, but I did want to just make a comment, Mayor,
Sure.
if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I have heard from folks as the district commissioner on this. And I wanted just to mention, I've heard more folks positive than opposed, but there's a misconception out there. And I wanted actually to call Chris Cooper up to clear the air for the record, because I think this is really important. To me, education is important. Understanding the code is important. This just a couple of emails that I did receive allude to the fact that we're pulling something over on folks, that we're changing the code here to make this work for the extra 2 stories. And I guess it's actually 24 feet. It's going from 120 to 144 feet.
142.
142. The CAM says actually
It can go up to 144 feet max. This project proposes to go to 142.
142. So it's 22 feet higher than what was originally improved, and we're going from 65 units to 83 units?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want you to explain why we're not changing the code. I mean, I could do this, but it's much better coming from you because you're the expert and you're the head of the department.
Sure.
But I want you to explain why this is not changing the code for this project. And if you could also explain what has happened on the Barrier Island with regards to the Central Beach Master Plan, because that also directly impacts why this is able to happen within code. So if you could just explain those 2 items and then put this project in context of that Central Beach Master Plan, and then also whether or not we are changing the zoning on this. Thank you.
Sure. So we are not changing the zoning. Actually, Mr. Lawani did a great job giving the code section and stating the code requirements, which is basically if a project proposes to stay under a maximum floor plate of 16,000 square feet, the applicant may request the commission to approve the additional height and increase by 20% up to 144 feet in height total. So that's the process this project went through. It's in the code. It was reviewed under the code. It's not changing the code. So for several years, we worked on these Central Beach Master Plan code updates. A couple of years ago, the commission approved those updates to.
Excuse me 1 second.
Yes.
How many years did we work on that?
We started before I started, so 10 years, 11 years, something like that.
I actually think I was the moderator way before being elected to office at the first meeting that we ever had for the Central Beach Master, and it was at least 13, 14 years ago. Help me understand, how involved was the neighborhood in that?
Very involved. So again, it started before I started, but I know there were many meetings in Central Beach with the residents, with the neighbors, with the stakeholders. The code was updated a couple years ago to create new form-based standards, to create a process that was more predictable for both the neighbors and the developers, and it was a very collaborative process that got us to the point where we brought that back to you for adoption.
Right, and that was passed by the commission when?
Oh gosh, I think about 2 years ago, maybe more.
Okay.
Not that long ago.
Okay. And so we're not changing the zoning. The code is not being changed. And actually what this is doing is adapting to the recently enacted Central Beach Master Plan.
Correct.
Correct. So when I go through the items that we are to take under consideration here from our ULDR, and I look at the Central Beach District requirements, I look at adequacy and neighborhood compatibility, I look at comprehensive plan consistency, and then I also look at all of the conditions of approval that have been established on this project previously when this commission approved this project, the site plan approval. Everything seems to fall in line without really requesting anything exceptional. We're not really granting any waivers or variances at all here on this.
Right, and so the intent behind this part of the code that allows for the increased height by staying below a maximum floor plate is that if you go to the maximum floor plate, you create that bulkier, heavier tower, so you have less light and air to the street, your view corridors are more interrupted, things of that nature. So by giving a developer the opportunity to come in with a lesser floor plate size, by giving them a little bit of additional height, it helps maintain, again, that light and air to the street, a better public realm experience, view corridors, and things of that nature. So it's a better experience in exchange for that additional 20 feet up to 144, 20% up to 144 max height.
Right, and I think if I remember correctly from all of the charrettes that I attended in workshops over all those many years, folks really seem to think, and we've seen this on other examples on the Barrier Island, for instance, with the Celine project, people seem to think that perhaps if you go taller and slender, you do have the light and the air and the views, because then the buildings are separated by all of those elements, as opposed to something shorter and squatter, where you are actually blocking views, you're blocking air, you're blocking light. Isn't that what the thought process was from all of those workshops when that master plan was changed?
It is. It gives you more opportunity to do more creative designs. So with the taller, more slender towers, you not only can create those corridors, but you can also have the opportunity to potentially adjust the orientation of the towers on the podium and provide those items that you just mentioned in a better way.
Also, another consideration, and it was mentioned by a previous speaker, this part of the Barrier Island for many years has been known as just a lot of asphalt. Really very, very, very little greenery. Bayshore is really in need of assistance. Will this site plan add to that experience for the pedestrian and the neighbors?
It will. So with the code update, we had the improved streetscape designs, which is that pedestrian realm, public realm experience with sidewalks and streetscapes. We also included things like open space requirements as a percentage of the total building. So there's opportunities there to add both public and private open space.
Okay, and then the conditions that were previously approved when this was the Olakino House and now it's changed to the Ritz-Carlton Residences, all of those conditions are still staying intact?
Right, the only change is to the height.
To the height, but the conditions of approval that are in the backup are all remaining consistent?
Correct.
Okay, and I thank you for that, because I just think that education is really important in these matters, because sometimes there's just a lot of misinformation, especially when it comes to our code. And I know that it is easy sometimes to react emotionally to a site plan approval or a development project, and I understand that. I understand where that's coming from, but equally important is to understand that our charge is to look at that code, to look at our ULDR. We cannot base our votes on emotion, or, oh, we don't want any more development here, or it's too much. We just can't do that. I mean, we would just be sued and probably lose, because we do have to follow the law, as we especially have adopted it in the last couple of years on the beach. So thank you for that, because it's really important, and I hope folks are, if they're either listening or they'll read the record, they'll understand exactly what is before us today. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further comments, Commissioner?
No, I'm good, and have we introduced this yet?
It's been
I did introduce it.
Approving, correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, introduce for approval. Thank you.
Right. Vice Mayor, did you want to say anything? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we've closed public hearing, and now the resolution's been introduced for approval, and now it's time to call the roll.
Yes. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving amendments to the site plan associated with the approved beach development permit for the residential project known as Olakino House, located at 551 Bayshore Drive, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the Intracoastal Overlook Area Zoning District, to increase the building height from 120 feet to 144 feet, with associated decrease in minimum tower separation from 51 feet 5 inches to 39 feet 3 inches, an additional 18 residential units, and an additional 27 parking spaces in the Central Beach Regional Activity Center.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Ms. Crush is shaking her head.
There's a kerfuffle. A bit.
Why don't you go up to the podium? Could you press the button below the mic?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Courtney Crush. In listening to the city clerk's recitation of the resolution, there is no reduction in tower separation.
I didn't think so.
So the tower separation ranges from 39 feet 1 inch to 51. So if that was unclear, I think that you would like to remove that from the resolution.
But Courtney, I want to just go back to that a second that you just mentioned that, because in our backup under Central Beach District requirements, it does say that the requirement is 30 feet for the tower separation. It says that the previously approved project, the Olakino House, was 51 feet 5 inches, and now it's going to 39 feet 3 inches.
And I had discussed that with Mr. Cooper. That was an error. The range in separation is 39 to 51. Those were carried as a change. It was not a change. We did submit a corrected application to staff. So there's no change in separation. It ranges based on the movement of the building from 39 feet to 51.
So
there's
when
no
it was
change in there.
when it was originally approved, I'm just writing this down. When it was originally approved,
The minimum separation was 39 feet 1 inch, if that's what it says. I'm sure it was 39
well,
feet.
actually, it says previously approved at 51 feet 5 inches.
That was the maximum separation. As proposed,
Okay.
excuse me, as approved, it was 39 and 51. It
Okay.
ranged. As proposed, it's 39 to 51. Zero change in any of those floors.
Zero change on the tower, minimum tower separation. So
Correct.
then, before I ask Chris just to get up and
Confirm
verify that, I have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
Because I should have probably asked it before. Have you met with the immediate buildings to the site since the change, since this item?
So we met with the Panama Club, its board president and some of its board members, December 18th. We also had a follow-up. I've had follow-up conversations with Peter Robin, who is their president. I also had a meeting last week with resident Karen Turner. We reached out to Bay Shore Towers, which is the building on the south, after sending them a letter on December 5th, and the others. John D'Angelo is the president of Bay Shore Towers. He just responded back, no restaurant, right? And I said yes, and that was that. And that has been our conversations. We also had the opportunity to have a Zoom meeting with the Sunrise Intercoastal neighborhood. Across the way, Jim Kincannon, its president, invited some board members and the waterfront owners to have that conversation. And that meeting was actually last night.
Okay, and in the category of you can't always please everybody, you just mentioned that others were happy that there still is no restaurant, and yet one of the emails I received is, gee, we don't even get anything for the neighborhood like a restaurant.
And that
so
was,
I just like...
So Bay Shore Towers said no restaurants. I was reminded in the Sunrise Intercoastal meeting yesterday, their second question was no restaurant, right? So you got to the south and west, no restaurant. Panama Club said we lost the restaurant. Ms. Turner said, why did we lose the restaurant?
I understand. Well, that's exactly what I said. You can't please everybody all of the time. So, and again, I wanted just to make one extra note about the minimum tower separation, because many times people feel that minimum tower separation means from property to property, but we're actually just talking about internally here.
Correct.
We're not talking about setbacks to the north and south
Correct.
with the neighboring properties. And that's important because we do have tower separation requirements when we're talking about setbacks from each property, but that's not the case here.
Correct, and actually the current code would seek to, as you said, have towers separate. So not to pick on Bay Shore Tower, which is a long 400-foot long building, but that I believe was the type of building that the code amendments that the master plan, I think I went back and checked, the discussion started, Commissioner, in 2014. I think Mayor Trentalis and Commissioner Glassman, you were at meetings at the Hilton in 2016, was to not have long walls.
Right.
So the minimum tower separation interior would be, under the proposed height, would be 28 feet 8 inches. And we are maintaining it at the 39 to 51.
Okay, great. And can we just get Chris to verify what you've just said, because it's important to have this
Okay,
verified.
and I do believe, and I apologize for the confusion, all of the plans and the narratives reflect what I just said.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
Yes, Ms. Crush is correct. I've checked the plans. There was a different notation on separation in the amendment application than the original application, but the tower separation features match between the original approved and this current iteration.
Okay, so there's no change to the minimum tower separation between the two towers internal to the site Nothing to do with the properties to the north or south?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay.
Dwayne Spence, Deputy
Yes,
City
Mr.
Attorney.
Spence.
So we'll have to amend the resolution to strike the references to the decrease in minimum tower separation.
Okay.
If the commission would take that action, and then the clerk can to reintroduce or introduce the resolution as amended.
So the resolution has been introduced. Who introduced it?
Steve did, so he would have to amend
Okay, so
it.
you'd have to amend it.
Yes, I'm fine with the amended resolution.
All right, I'll reread it again. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving amendments to the site plan associated with the approved beach development permit for the residential project known as Olakino House located at 551 Bayshore Drive, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the Intracoastal Overlook Area Zoning District to increase the building height from 120 feet to 144 feet, an additional 18 residential units, and an additional 27 parking spaces in the Central Beach Regional Activity Center. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst? Yes. Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that resolution is now approved. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Moving on to PH1, public hearing, quasi-judicial resolution approving a waiver of limitations at 3019 Northeast 20th Court for the installation of one boat lift. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions and make them a part of the record. Does anyone have any disclosures? Commissioner Herbst?
No.
Vice Mayor?
No.
I have none. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've had extensive conversations with the chair of the Marine Advisory Board. I've had conversations with neighbors. Dan Kahan, this was yesterday actually, January 22nd, 2024. Loretta Ullman, Mark Jones. I think that's everyone that was on my Zoom call yesterday. And that should do it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sturman?
None.
Okay. All right, so we have several people who signed up to speak, and I'll call your names in threes so you can be prepared to speak. I'll start with you, Steve Whitten, and Hubie Kearns, followed by Frank Mormando. I'll be right back.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, nice to see you and good evening. I think I walked in first, or I probably signed up first. I'd be happy to come back up and defend any position here. This was a permit that was brought to us in December meeting. At the time, the board unanimously approved this request. At the time, the concern that we had was that what was voiced to us, it was a line of sight issue whereby the applicant is requesting to simply put a boat lift in front of their house. They've been there for a handful of years. They have an existing large dock. The issue, and I'm not sure that there's really a place for this in a conversation like this, but the applicant has with respect to hardship. We talk about wave action, et cetera, which is clearly there, but I would suggest that there's a hardship beyond that, and that is simply the need of our residents. In this case, the applicant and his wife are looking for access. They are senior citizens. I say that proudly. They're looking to be able to get on and off the boat, and without the lift and a purpose-built walkway, they were not able to do that. What we are fighting over, folks, is 3 feet. 3 feet. We have a canal whereby the owner of this property can choose with 5-foot setbacks to put a very large sport fish with a tuna tower and block everybody. What they've asked for is simply a boat lift to put their 38-foot boat up and out of the water so they have a little easier access. So I'm really sensitive to this. Some of the objections that came to us, folks were talking about how property values will be negatively impacted. This is an area of, I guess, the least expensive house is $4 million going to $10 million. I was in investment real estate for 50 years. Property values are not going to be impacted. So if there's a legitimate reason why we, the board, should reconsider this, or the city commission should consider this, I'd love to be part of that conversation. But what I see right now is a level of NIMBYism that I find extremely frustrating. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I thank you all for the opportunity.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any
Steve,
questions?
actually, while you're up there, I do have a question. So I noticed when I was reading the minutes of the Marine Advisory Board meeting that the individual requesting the waiver had offered to center the dock on their property. Attorney Dunkel had said we can include that in amendment. I know the neighbor that submitted the letter to us today had indicated that that would be an acceptable solution, compromise, but yet that was removed from the final actual motion. Can you tell me why? Because it seemed like we had a win-win from the neighboring property owner and the applicant.
So, thank you, John. I walked in this evening with counsel, the applicant, etc. Everybody feeling as if we struck a compromise because we did receive the letter from Mr. and Mrs. Ullman, whereby they suggested that if the applicant, they had proposed, if the applicant had moved the boat to the west, that they might be amenable to this. Now, again, we don't have to split hairs, and I'm sure I read the letter wrong, but the bottom line is when the applicant presented it, I understand, to the Ullmans, they were flatly turned down. The applicant requested shifting the boat over more toward the center because bringing it over to the west side, again, I'm not sure solves any issues. So they are amenable to adjusting it, but I don't believe that the objectors are amenable at this point, John.
Okay, because the letter that I received said that that would be an acceptable solution for them, and that was one that they had actually discussed when they had met with the applicant and walked the site. So I think from my perspective, if we can shift it to the center of the property, I think that would be a more acceptable outcome for everybody involved.
Look, I agree with you. I'm sure the Ullmans are here, and I'm sure they're going to speak. But again, this comes down to, I've been doing this for a number of years. And again, I see issues of true hardship, and I hear issues that I think are absolute nonsense. This is one of the more credible requests that we've had, and I feel as if the applicant is entitled to this request. There is nothing whatsoever that's going to impose on anybody. And again, the option is they put a boat there that's really going to piss everybody off. So that's where we are.
I have a question for Mr. Dunkel. So when we talk about hardship, I understand what Mr. Whitten said, that the applicant is elderly and it makes it easier for them to get on and off the boat. Does that qualify as a hardship?
Well, first of all, Bob Dunkel, Assistant City Attorney. First of all, the notion of hardship is something that pertains to Board of Adjustment granting variances.
Okay.
Here, the criteria is exceptional circumstances.
Okay.
You have, in the past, approved dock waivers where those factors were placed in evidence. Most recently, in the Mavon case, back in July. The individuals they were elderly, they had difficulty getting into the boat with a rise and fall of the tides, and therefore the boat lift. Secondly, I would like to say that at the beginning of the meeting, I was able to huddle up with the proponents and the opponents and propose the idea of moving the dock to the center.
Right.
And the opponents flatly rejected it. They want the boat lift moved to the extreme east end to the intercoastal. I'm sorry, I apologize. Towards the intercoastal, I apologize, yes.
So two questions with that. So if we grant a waiver based on a hardship for an individual, I'm sorry,
Exceptional.
An exceptional, right? I'm sorry, exceptional. Okay. How'd you say that? Exceptional, what was the other?
Exceptional circumstances.
Exceptional circumstances.
Extraordinary circumstances.
Actually, it says extraordinary,
Extraordinary
circumstances,
circumstances.
not exceptional. It says extraordinary,
Okay, extraordinary
circumstances.
circumstances. Okay, so extraordinary circumstances, thank you. So we have extraordinary circumstances are related to an individual, not to a property. So if this individual were to no longer reside at that property, does the extraordinary circumstance go away and the dock have to be moved, the lift have to be removed? Because the next individual may be a somewhat more limber and nimble individual who can jump on and off a boat with no problem, unlike myself, and would not need the boat lift. There would no longer be an extraordinary circumstance if we had a different property owner there. So how does that work?
Okay, if the only thing in the record were that inability to get in and out of the boat, and if that's the only thing you're hanging your hat on, but that's not the case.
Okay.
You've got a number of other factors in the record.
Okay.
So my answer to you on the question of would it have to go away is no. Could you create a reasonable condition on the granting of this waiver? Yes, you could. You could put a provision in there that would have the waiver go away with the passing of these folks.
And what are these other extraordinary circumstances that give rise to the waiver?
Give me a moment.
Above and beyond the accessibility issue?
All structures and piles will not, and this is all in the record, all structures and piles will not exceed 30% of the waterway. Due to the extraordinary width of the waterway at this location from the wet face to wet face, and it said 167, but I've also heard it may be 148, the proposed project will not impede navigation within Bonita Bay. The proposed structures are necessary for the safely mooring of residents' vessels, especially during high winds and severe weather. The proposed structures are also necessary to protect the residents' vessel from high wave energy from excessive boat wakes entering from the intercoastal. As I go through the years of these waivers, these are factors that are repeated time and time again. So the record is replete with things that you could hang your hat on to prove up extraordinary circumstances.
Okay. Next question, when we get to, as Mr. Whitten referred to, so if we're impacting the view from the neighboring parcel, does that enter into the consideration for the waiver?
Let me approach it from this direction. The writings seem to indicate that they have a riparian right of view. The answer to that is no, they do not have a riparian right to view. Excuse me, and I'm going to cite the case of Mickle versus Norton, 69 Southern 3rd, 181. Basically what you've got here is you've got Bonita Bay and then you've got the intercoastal. And in that particular case that I'm citing, the people said, well, wait a minute, we've got a riparian right to look out to the intercoastal. The court said, no, you've only got a riparian right of view to the thread of the channel in Bonita Bay. So you don't have a right of a riparian right of view. However, the board does have the commission has the ability to fashion conditions to the resolution that could take that into account.
Okay.
When we address this, let's make sure you hear this argument. Yes.
So riparian rights refers to access to water, not.
It also includes the right of view.
But the right of view is perpendicular to the land.
It's to the thread of the channel.
And that's to the thread of the channel. What
Yes.
does that mean?
Yeah.
Put that in layman's
Let's
terms.
put the thread of the channel is pretty much the middle line.
Okay. It's not to the left or to the right.
No, and I was about to get there.
It doesn't go out like that.
It doesn't go 180 degrees. If it did,
45?
we could no longer be the Venice of America.
Right, I
Because
get
anytime you put a boat dock on your neighbor's property, oh, my right of view has been destroyed.
Right.
We wouldn't have any boats.
So where does that fall in though? So it's not 180. Is it 45? Is it
It's 90 degrees.
60?
The riparian right is straight out to the thread of the channel.
It's 90 degrees.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can look straight out. So they can't intrude.
But beyond the law of riparian rights,
Right.
y'all have the ability to attach conditions to the resolution
Okay.
of waiver.
Mayor?
You will shortly.
Yep.
May
No,
I
I'm just
oh,
trying
sorry.
to get answers to some of the questions that were raised in the letter so that I understand, the legality as opposed to the emotional side of it. So I want to understand where we stand, what our role is, and what is required or permitted. Okay, I'm good for right now. I may have some more questions, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hubie Kearns, followed by Frank.
Mayor, I wanted to ask Mr.
Wait,
Dunkel a question.
Frank
I'm sorry.
Mormondo? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
You asked a question to whom?
Bob Dunkel. Bob, I have a question for you.
Mr. Kearns, you can stay there.
To just
Yes, sir.
piggyback on some of the questions that Commissioner Herbst had. So help me understand, this dock already extends 16 feet into the water, correct?
That is correct.
Is that considered normal?
It's not in violation of the code, but it is a pretty large dock, yes.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
most of the marginal docks you
Yeah.
see are 5-6 feet out.
That's my point.
Yes.
Bonita Bay is an interesting location within Dolphin Isles. What would happen? Okay, what would happen if this was granted, and then we did that for every single property owner on Bonita Bay? What would happen to the navigational aspects of Bonita Bay and then out into the Intracoastal?
Well, first of all, you've got to remember that there's a provision that leaves 50% open for navigation. And according to my calculations, that would leave 41 feet in the middle for navigation. I don't think that
Which measurement is that based on? Because you
that was
mentioned-
based on the 167. If you
Not the
use
148?
If you use the 148, that'd be 37 feet.
Okay.
So you do have a navigational channel that's left open. You cannot go beyond that.
Right. But my point is, if you look at all of the properties on Bonita Bay, and if everyone wanted to do something similar to this, if they all wanted a 16-foot into the water dock, and then adding this lift, what would that bay look like?
More congested than it is now.
It would be outrageously crazy. See, here's my issue, and I'm not quick to support a lot of these waivers, these waivers of limitations, because I just find that they make no sense to me. And if you grant for one, you should grant for all. Or how do you say, oh, you know what? Bonita Bay is getting really crowded now, so even though we have done this waiver of limitations before, you can't have it now because we're getting a little concerned. I don't know how you do that without being totally unfair and unjust to the people that want Me Too after. It just doesn't make any sense. I would rather see us tighten up the ULDR so that a lot of these waivers of limitations are a little bit more regulated, because it's just, to me, it's just too willy-nilly. It doesn't make sense. And even in the backup, when I look at, maybe you can help me with this, when I look at the other examples of the 6 waivers of docking distance limitations approved by the City Commission, help me if I'm wrong, but most of them are on the west side of the Intracoastal, not even on the east side of the Intracoastal. Is that correct?
I'm going to have Andrew answer that because he's looked at this more thoroughly than I have.
Yes, that's correct.
So why should we be led to believe that these are great examples of what we've already approved when, if you look at this is just not the west side of the Intracoastal. It's not even close, and it's a totally different experience because of the fact that we're talking about Bonita Bay. I'll have more questions and comments later, but I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Mr. Kearns.
Hi, I'm the property owner, and I just wanted to point out a couple things there. That bay, or our channel, is one of the widest ones there. It's also one of the shortest, and on the Intercoastal there's no speed limit. So all the boats go charging by there, the waves come in, they hit the wall, they rebound, more boats, and it gets very violently choppy in there. And so of the 9 houses that are there, and that's counting the 2 that are on the end, 4 of them have water vessels and boats, and are all on lifts. It is pretty much impossible to keep your boat there without it getting banged up, without having a lift. And the most important part about it is, me and my wife have been boaters for 48 years. We've been married and boaters all that time. And she has Parkinson's. So she is handicapped and unable to get onto the boat without having a stable platform there for her. You know, I can't have a boat chopping and bouncing, so she will be unable to go boating with us if we don't have the lift. So I would like you to take that handicap into consideration here.
And I'm very sorry to hear all of that, and I understand with 100%. But that does not preclude the idea of why can't you just move this lift to the west of your property?
Well, you know, it is one of the largest channels in there, and if every boat put a larger dock in there, I had nothing to do with the dock. It was all been approved, all set up by the city, and you know, I bought the property last year in looking forward to putting my boat in the backyard there. I have been in this process for a year now, trying to get the city approval on this, and so my boat has just been sitting up in a parking lot at the boat dealership.
But if I can just repeat my question, why can't you move the lift to the western portion of your dock?
I made an agreement with them, and which I thought held to move to the middle. And when I got here tonight, I was informed, no, I only want it clear to the west end. If I move it to the west end, then I have a boat sitting out in front of me, blocking the entire view of the intercoastal.
But you know what you're saying now.
Yes,
Okay.
I want it in the center. You got to remember, my view on it is 38 feet being blocked. Their view on it is 11 feet. And from their position and the height of my dock, because it's a newer house built in 2016, it's got the raised walls and everything there. So their house sits down below, and from their view, they're only going to be able to see the very top of the boat. You know, and I'm asking to lift it up, you know, a few feet off the water. You know, if not, it'll go in the water there. I'll probably sell it and get a taller one, and you know, do something so my wife will be able to get onto the boat somehow.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
And City Manager, what does it take for us to work with whatever agencies are necessary to examine an area like this, Bonita Bay, in terms of no wake signs or speed zones, or what does it take for us to actually appeal to the proper authorities to take a look at certain areas like this? There really should be no reason why an area like Bonita Bay should have a concern where if they don't put their boat on a lift, the boat's just going to get smashed.
Mr. Q is going to be able to answer that for us.
Certainly, state FWC, Fish and Wildlife Commission, determines the speed zone up and down the intercoastal waterway. So to answer what it would take, it would be us to initiate a request that they review this.
Have we ever done something like that on another part of the along the intercoastal?
Not that I'm aware of along the intercoastal.
Okay. Any reason why we couldn't do that?
Well, we could build a breakwater jetty across the whole front of it, and that would.
Oh, you can start that project tomorrow, Mayor. But
The speed zones vary from
Yes.
location to location.
No, I understand.
Yes.
But I don't think it's, I mean, I don't know why, you know, I know the exact area that everyone's talking about here.
Yes.
I don't understand why we can't say, you know what, it probably would be a better idea if there was a reduction in speed or a no-wake zone or whatever we could do. I'm just throwing it out there. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank? Followed by Daniel Kahan, followed by Loretta Ullman. And can staff put the visual of the aerial of the bay on the screen?
Is that exhibit?
What is it? Exhibit?
It's the only photo in the backup
Exhibit
of
1?
Yeah.
Bonita Bay.
Page 10.
Good evening. Can you push the button right below the mic? There you go.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, fellow residents. My name is Frank Momando. I represent Mr. Kearns and the general contractor, or I should say the marine contractor that is proposing the work at this location. I'm a professional licensed general contractor myself who specialize in marine permitting. here and throughout several counties in the state of Florida. I've made myself available to allow everybody to present all of the different evidence and results of the different meetings that we've had up to this point. And I would just like to reiterate a few of the points that have been made. And I know Commissioner Glassman has received some concerns from residents that maybe my experience is limited as it is not going to exceed anything from these gentlemen from the committee. My point number one being was that this was given out to a general consensus for anybody to have any objections back when we had the Marine Advisory Board. Matter of fact, Mr. Mayor, you happened to be at the meeting that night when we were there for this particular resolution. Mr. Kearns bought the property. The dock was there. It was approved. It was permitted. So the extension of this boat lift falls. The way the ordinance reads is you have up to 30% of the width of the canal, or no more than 25 feet from the wet face. It must be the least part of it. So anything above 25 feet from the wet face naturally needs this waiver going through this process.
So 25 feet is the permitted distance, correct?
Correct, sir.
And we're asking for 28.9, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
And we are within, if you take the 149 feet and divide that, times it by the 30%, that's 44 feet. So you could permissibly go out as far as, but the statute reads that you cannot go more than 25 feet. They have that 30% rule in the smaller canals, especially in the aisles.
Right. So tonight we're debating over 3 feet 9 inches.
Correct, sir.
Okay, just want to
That
understand.
30% would be how far out?
Well, 30% of 149,
Okay.
so.
Close to 150, yeah.
Yeah.
50, yeah.
Right, exactly. I'd like to also point out that this is the intercoastal here, as Mr. Kuba has alluded to. Florida Fish and Wildlife control that, but the Army Corps of Engineers controls the intercoastal. Anything that happens with them out there has to be done with that.
We understand that.
Yeah. The center of the canal here, there was some concerns about being able to navigating boats with this additional 3 feet on our side. Well, if a person cannot turn a vessel around in 150 feet, they maybe should take a boating course. And,
Well, that's not the, all right, so that's not the point.
That's not
Okay.
the point being not in hindering any navigation, Mr. Mayor. That's
Okay.
all that I'm saying.
Okay, all
So
right.
I would make myself available, talk too much as it is, and I'll sit down, and if I can help shed some light on any of the situations that the commission might have, or yourself, I'd be available for any further
Okay,
questions.
thank you so much. We appreciate that. Daniel, followed by Loretto Ullman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I am a neighbor who lives 2 houses east of the subject property. I will be negatively impacted if this is approved.
Whereabouts do you live here now?
2 to the right of the arrow.
2 east.
Let's see.
To the right.
2 to the right?
Like in the corner to the right, lower right.
In the corner, sort of the
Triangular or whatever.
trapezoid,
Yeah, whatever
In the
I forget
corner.
the
Yes.
4 from the intercoastal.
Okay, so that's your property.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're objecting to. Okay, I'm sorry.
So-
Please go ahead.
So we're within the 300 feet, so we received notice from the city of
Right.
this. And I just want to be clear up front, this is not a neighborly spat. I have no ill will toward our neighbors. This is not a NIMBYism issue. What this is about for me is the relevant ULDR standard. Commissioner Glassman brought that up with respect to the last agenda item. And that standard is very clear, which is, do extraordinary circumstances exist? And application has the burden of demonstrating that. And with that standard in mind, there are really 3 things that stand out here. which is first, the application does not cite any actual extraordinary circumstances. It makes references to things like wave and wind activity and the benefits of having a boat lift generically, but those points are justifications really for any boat lift. They're not justifications for why there needs to be an incursion of nearly 29 feet into the waterway. These are just common issues faced by every waterfront property, every boater. They're not extraordinary. Second, the applicant seeks a waiver to create an incursion to the waterway of nearly 29 feet beyond the property line. I think it's precisely 28 feet 9 inches. According to the summary that was provided to the Marine Advisory Board, going back 14 years, the other similar waivers, which as Commissioner Glassman noted, were not on the barrier island for the most part. There was one on the northern part, are all under 25 feet. There's nothing approaching this distance of 29 feet, so this is actually unprecedented. And in terms of the Marine Advisory Board's prior decision, please keep in mind that neighbors who contacted the advisory board, and I believe there were 4 of us of the 6 properties affected, were told that the Marine Advisory Board focused only on navigability issues, not on this extraordinary circumstances standard. So we limited our comments to things that we thought would be relevant to the advisory board. Due to notice, we could not attend in person, but that is what we were told by the city was the focus, and we are here tonight because we understand the commission's lens and the ULDR focus is much wider. The commission is not a rubber stamp. The relevant test is, again, whether there are extraordinary circumstances that justify the waiver. Respectfully, there are none here, and the application should be rejected.
Okay, thank you, sir. And Loretta Ullman. Sorry to keep you waiting. Where are you going? Oh, okay, you have.
But I think it will give you a better picture of what Bonita Bay really looks like, and I don't know how I'm going to present it. If I had known I could send you pictures, I would have done that, could have put it on the screen. But I'll show you just at Bonita Bay is one of the smallest canals in Dolphin Isles. Right here is 19th Street and Marion Park. Oh, you're gonna hold it? Thank you. Okay, I'll talk in the mic and, oh, okay, because I wanted to read something too. Okay, all right, I'll just, yeah.
See what you create.
Oh, thank you. Is this still on? Can you hear me? Okay. I have to see what I'm doing.
Come back here a little bit.
I sent you all an email. I apologize. My printer stopped working, so I couldn't print out my letter
okay,
to you.
so tell us what your thoughts are.
But I would like to tell you about this. Okay, this is my husband, Warren.
Hello, Warren.
He's a transplant survivor. And
You have to speak in the microphone.
Sorry, guys. Okay, he's a transplant
So
survivor,
why don't you just
and
point
I'm
to
the
your
caregiver.
pictures? Point to your pictures so we have an understanding of what your concern is.
The first picture is a true picture of what the size of Bonita Bay and what it looks like. It's the smallest canal in Dolphin Isles. The width is not the the width is not 167 feet. It's 148 feet, according to Mr. Kern's contractor. And it's on, if you have his information, it's on sample 2 and sample 3 of his contractor, 148 feet. If you're only allowed 25%, you're not allowed to go over 25% of the width of the canal, then 148 feet width with a 29 point whatever they are requesting is 37 feet
No,
into.
no, your math is wrong, ma'am.
How?
Your math is wrong.
He just said 37.
He's seeking 28.9.
Right.
Okay, and 25% of 140 is about 38 feet.
That's what I said. Didn't I
Yeah,
say
but
that?
so at 38 feet, so 28.9 is less than 38 feet.
Oh, thank you. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I didn't do it
It's
that way.
it gets confusing.
My
Don't worry
husband
about it.
kept trying to tell me feet,
It's okay.
not
Don't worry.
percent. I
Don't
was
worry
going
about
by
it.
percent.
It gets confusing.
Okay. So anyway, we only have, Mr. Kearns, we only have 2 homes that are on lifts. And I've never heard of having a boat lift for reasons of being a handicap. I would think you would want to buy a lift for a handicapped person to go onto the boat, not to have a boat lift that lifts the water. You'd have to put the lift down in order for the person to get on the boat. I'm dry-mouthed. I'm having a hard time
It's
talking.
okay. Take your time. Take your
Okay,
time.
so I cited that as number 2. I didn't know they were going to use the handicap as having a boat lift. So I wanted to show you my pictures, our pictures, before this lift was going to be implemented. And also I wanted to show you the Kearns home. They had nothing to do with all of this stuff that was, oh my God, I can't talk. I don't know what's wrong.
Can I get you a bottle of water? Let me get you a bottle of water. You want to get her a bottle of water, please, in the refrigerator?
Oh, I've never had this happen to me.
But if you like something stronger, the mayor has that.
I don't drink.
He keeps it under the
That's
dais.
downstairs in the
He
restaurant.
keeps it under the dais.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. God.
Shh, you were supposed to confess to that. Yeah, okay.
You are right next door? Is that where you are?
I'm right next door, whoever asked.
So next door to the left or to the right?
I'm on the east side of
The
him.
east side,
To the
Yes.
right.
Yes, I'm on the
In
east side.
that orange roof home.
She's in between the person that
The
spoke
person-
before
okay.
her
Right.
and the property. Yeah.
And so basically, you don't want a big boat to be lifted up off the water, obstructing your view. Is
Right,
that kind of
because
what we're
it's right at the property line where if you read the contractor's information, it's right at the property line. When we met with the Kearns, Mr. Kearns took us out to his dock and he showed us his idea. They're very nice people and I don't want to cause any animosity, but I also have to, we have to think about what's going on.
It's too late for that.
I mean, but anyway, the problem is, we said to Mr. Kearns, why don't you just make your dock smaller? You know, that would be the solution. But he explained that it's just too expensive to cut it back a couple of feet. So then I said, why don't you put it on the west side? So it won't obstruct any view. And he said, because it will obstruct my view, and I want to see the intercoastal. So that's where we are. We're at a standstill. Now, he did suggest to put it in more in the middle, and we thought about that, and we said, but we need it. I'm a visual person. I need to see things. And we were told that he would talk to the contractor and something would be presented so we could actually see. I mean, this boat not only is going to be on a lift, but it's whoever said it's a 38-footer is incorrect because the contractor's information and Mr. Kearns said it's 46 feet. The boat is, but the beam, the width of the boat is 12.6. So not only are you going to have a lift, but you're going to have a lift that extends out an additional 12.6 feet. Because of the width of the boat.
Okay, so what is the length of the site of the property line? Property itself, is it 75 feet? Is it 50?
He has 80 feet.
It's 80 feet.
Yes.
So the lot is 80 feet wide.
Right.
And the boat is about 50 feet, right?
Right.
Okay. So there's like 30 feet of additional footage that will not be obstructed by the boat. So you all are saying moving it over to the left-hand side of the site so
Right.
that there's more of an opening that you'll be able to view the waterway rather than putting it in the middle or putting it over to your side. Is that
Right,
kind of...
right, that's all.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to move the conversation along.
Okay,
So,
all right. So, yeah, that's it. I
Okay.
mean, because already, which I'm very envious of, he didn't do it. It was done, and I hope I can do it one day. We can do it. But he's already 3 feet. His dock is 3 feet higher than our property. So when he tells us we're sitting low, I mean, we're not sitting low. We're sitting normal. But now all the docks and everything, the seawalls are going up, and
Right.
3 feet is excellent. But so being right at the property line, saying the visual that we only get straight view of visual, we won't even get straight view of visual. Well, maybe we
Well,
would.
you'll get the straight
Well,
view.
yeah, that's it. That's about it.
You get to look
straight
at the
view.
person across the other side
Right,
of the.
right, which is fine. But it is so small, and if you would just look at this picture more so than the picture that you have on the screen, you'll see the true picture of what Bonita Bay looks like compared to all of the other canals in Dolphin Isles.
Right, and I would suggest, man, that folks take a look at page 14 of 28 in the CAM Exhibit 1. That's a better diagram to put up for us, actually, because that does show a comparison, for instance, with Bonita Bay in comparison to...
What page?
Page 14 of 28 in Exhibit 1. If you look at that location map, you'll get a better idea of the size of Bonita Bay in comparison to a typical bay, which is just to the south of Bonita Bay.
To the right.
Bonita Bay is which one, to the right?
Well, I think that's a.
Well, yours is up
I
and
think
down.
that's a little. That does a disservice to the conversation here because it's still 150 feet wide. You can compare it to the intercoastal itself, and it's going to be, the intercoastal is still going to be wider. I think we're just looking at what the law states, and what the law allows us to do. So if we're looking at 25, I think the law is 25 feet or 30%. Is that Mr. Dunkel? Mr. Dunkel, there you are. Mr. Dunkel, is the law 25 feet or 30%, whichever is less, correct?
Actually, under the waiver provision, it's 25 feet or 25%, whichever is less. You go beyond that, then you need a waiver. There's another provision of the code, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, where are you? That basically says you can, and this is in Chapter 8, so
Yep.
it's something that you cannot get a waiver from the Board of Adjustment. You can only go out 30% on one side, 30% on the other. That's 60, leaving 40 open in the middle.
Right, so we're under the 30%.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
But wait a minute. I thought you said 25%. What is the 30%?
A point beyond which you cannot grant waivers.
So
You can
even
grant a
if,
waiver
so
be-
ma'am, if the city commission agrees to grant a waiver that exceeds the 25 feet, okay, no matter what, we can't go beyond 30% of the distance between the two properties. When you're at the other side of the canal and his side of the canal.
Okay,
Right.
so you can't go beyond 30%. But
Right.
what about people, what about the other 7 homes who will want to do the same? We'll end up with no water space
No,
at all.
you won't have a water view, you just have water access.
We won't even be able to do that. Right now, people who come into our canal have to back up, little boats, 27-foot boaters, have to back up all the way to the intercoastal to get back into the intercoastal. We don't have that much room. It's a very small canal. It's not wide at all, and it's not long.
No, it's not.
Mr. Dunkel, why is this not even allowed to be done, or why is it not possible for this to be done within the permitted distance without the waiver, the 25 feet? Why can't the lift be done within the 25 feet and not needing a waiver?
I'm not an engineer by any stretch of the imagination. The size of the lift is what takes it out beyond the 25 feet to 28.9. You could have a smaller lift with a smaller boat and still meet the 25.
Exactly.
But again, I'm not the engineer, so I don't know what that.
No, I understand. That's my
But
point.
you're the collective wisdom of the ages, Mr. Dunkel.
Yes, many ages.
That 25 cents will get you a lot.
Yeah.
And you have a Florida Gator lapel over there. I like that.
Okay, I just have a couple of points, and then I'll leave.
And then I need you to
because,
sit down because you've exceeded your 2 minutes. But go ahead.
But you let your who was the person who was talking about saying that we were ridiculous and that the boat was 38 feet, and he was just giving you misinformation. Is he somebody from the county?
No.
Oh,
No one's
okay.
here from the county.
Okay, all right. Because that's very upsetting
We
to
don't
hear.
allow them in our meetings.
Listen, our
God.
point is we want everybody
that'll
to
be
be
helpful.
happy. But
No offense. Don't take it. I take that back.
Really? Oh, my God.
our point is we want
go ahead,
everybody to be
ma'am.
happy. But if you allowed this If you pass this, allowing the extra 3.9 feet, then you can be expected to have everyone request that. And it isn't our fault that his dock is 16 point something feet wide and 80 feet long. That's not, it shouldn't be a punishment to the neighbors because he has a tremendous, dock.
Okay, that's the final word. Okay.
That's it. Okay.
Thank
But
you.
I will appeal it if you guys vote to have
Okay.
it done.
All right.
I'll
Thank
just
you.
tell you that right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item?
Okay.
Oh, we can call you back up. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, and sir.
Can I ask a question? What is that structure on the northern side of this canal? Can someone answer that for me?
Which structure is that, Mayor? What do you say?
On the opposite side of the canal, what's that structure in the water?
Where?
Gigantic home, it's a $12 million home.
And is there a lift there?
Yeah, it's a home.
See the lift?
It's a brand new home with a lift. Brand new home with a lift that I have.
No, sir, I'm not asking you to speak, please. Someone from city staff, can you tell me what is?
Oh, I see.
What is that structure? In the water? What I miss this? Okay. Yeah.
It's a lift.
Oh, so it's a lift.
Yes.
So we already have a lift in the water.
Oh, there's a
then.
few of them there.
Oh, there are a few. Oh, okay, so this isn't the first lift.
No, there's 4 lifts in the bay there.
That's a construction barge?
That could be, yes, it is. They were doing the dock, sir.
Oh, I see, okay.
But there is a lift exactly in that spot.
Oh, wait, this isn't a chorus of voices here. Come on.
Right.
Mr. Whitten.
A couple quick things, please.
Yes.
I did check, and it appears, unless the boat has changed, the boat is 38 feet. The beam is 11 and a half feet. That's what
Okay.
I've been told. If it's different than that, then that's not what we're aware of, but a 38-foot boat is certainly a reasonable-sized boat to put there. And the reason, again, you would need the width is obviously due to the beam. It's nothing more than that. The other thing is that Mr.
So
Glass...
it's a 38-foot boat for an 80-foot parcel of land.
Right.
So it's half. Ma'am, please don't shout. It's about half the length of the.
Roughly.
Okay.
Can we verify that?
All right. Let him continue to talk.
No
and
problem.
We'll verify that.
The, again, with all due respect, this is the same information I've been given. So if it's different, I did check and be happy to.
Well, the applicant's here.
The applicant has told us it's 38
38
feet
feet?
with a beam of 11 and a half feet.
Is it 38 feet?
It's 38 feet, 6 inches. You can look it up. It's a Pursuit 38.
All right. So it's 38 feet 6 inches. Okay, we got that.
So it's not 50 feet.
Okay, Mr. Kearns, thank you.
The other thing, with all due respect to Mr. Glassman, he made a point about, and other folks have said the same thing. What happens if the applicant is given permission to put the lift in and everybody else asks for permission? It's happened, guys. It's happened on a New River. So what happened is the guy who put a lift in on the perpendicular lift on the New River 2 years ago, we granted him permission to do that. Today, we're in the process of putting a moratorium on the same thing. So the issue is that we approved a lot until we didn't. And so essentially, I know this is an archaic way of doing things, but if somebody requests a request for a waiver and it meets with our guidelines, we would approve it subject to you folks. At some point, if there's too many waivers, somebody's going to say, we can't do anymore. I don't know how else you regulate this, but that's how we've been operating.
Well, that brings up a very good point, because that almost creates an incentive for people to rush in and get that so that they get in first.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that the answer is that if you grant this application and other folks listen to this, they're going to all decide they want to put lifts. Meanwhile, they've been living there for years, and apparently they've chosen not to do that. So again, the dilemma we have in regulating this is it's all fine until it's not fine. And that's essentially where we are.
Well, it's all fine until it's not fine. So that,
But that's how we've been operating.
I know.
But can't we be proactive?
That's what we're trying to do.
We are. And you know what? The Marine Advisory Board has definitely been very proactive these last couple of years, especially along the New River. We've been much more circumspect in our approvals, and I think that, and I think that what we're trying to do here is to balance the equities here between a person wanting to have the ability to use their boat, especially since his spouse is handicapped, and we're trying to see, is this an egregious imposition upon the neighbor's view and operation of the canal by granting this, or is granting this going to be an obstruction of their ability to appreciate the canal and to be able to use the canal for their own boating purposes? That's
Mayor,
essentially the issue.
Well, let me add to that, actually, if I may. I don't think the question is whether or not the applicant is able to get the lift in order to accommodate the physical disability. I think the question is whether we preserve his view or whether we preserve the other property owner's view. Because if we move the lift all the way to the west, then it obstructs his view, which he doesn't want to do, but it preserves the view of the opposing party. So really, the question isn't one of access based on a disability. It's whose view are we going to impair?
Well, let me ask you a question, Commissioner. So let's all right, looking at the aerial, okay.
Right.
So if the lift is put all the way to the west, okay.
Right. Actually, if we shifted that entire dock all the way to the west, then there's no obstruction of the view from those houses out towards the intercoastal. Because right now you can sit out, I'm just looking at this, right now you can sit there and you can see the intercoastal. And so if you put a boat that extends out a little further into it, I'm just looking at line of sight at 45 off of that corner, you're not going to be able to see the intercoastal anymore. So all you can see is directly out, but you'll no longer be able to have any view of the intercoastal if you stick a boat out past that 16-foot dock. Whereas if you were to shift that entire dock to the middle of the property or to the far western portion of the property, it would not obstruct their view of the intercoastal whatsoever. So really, again, all we're talking about is whose view we're going to impact here. We're not talking really, if you ask me, the core of this is somebody's view is going to be obstructed. Whose view?
All right, so let me ask this. If the property owner wants the access, if the property owner wants to be able to put a lift there, they've got to give something up. And that you're saying they've got to give up part of their view is basically what you're saying. And it's not a reasonable ask. So
Is there any other reason why could it not be on the extreme west side? I'm curious. Go ahead.
I had already agreed with my neighbor to move it to the middle. It obstructs part of my view. I don't know how much of it's going to obstruct theirs because it's moved forward and it's only 11 feet 6 inches wide as opposed to 38. Being straight out of the street.
So that sounds like the
Loretta,
solution.
can we compromise this to go in the middle?
My intercoastal view, but I'd like to
Can we
preserve
do
a little bit of it.
Hold on. Can we compromise to go in the middle? Just yes or no.
We can't do that tonight, ma'am. This is a yes or no. We're going to vote tonight.
There's 3 homes involved.
No. Yours is the only
I don't
one.
have to talk.
Yours is the only one that really is impacted by
the sight
By line of sight. By a line of sight.
All right,
No,
wait, let me just, may I ask you something? If I'm going by the summary description that was provided by their contractor, and it states clearly that the boat, their yacht is 46 feet 2 inches, why is it all of a sudden 38 feet? And then they also stated something.
What page is that on the back? What page?
It's on the contractor's page.
Which one?
From the memorandum, okay, 1, 2, and then it's a summary application for waterway waiver. That's
Does it have a page number?
yeah. No, it doesn't. But it says summary description pages 2 and 3.
But I think what we have here tonight is sworn testimony from the applicant that it's 38 foot 6 inches. So
But Mr. Kearns told me it was 46 feet.
No, I've never said it was
But this
46. I
is
don't own a
sworn
46
testimony.
foot
So
boat.
we are under oath here at this point. So this is sworn testimony.
Oh,
Whatever may have been.
here's where the mistake is. It says the lift will be placed 46 2 inches from the property line.
Oh, so it's the
no,
lift.
I got that too, but we were told it was 40. Dan,
Okay, so now we know it's
46.
38 feet.
No,
Okay.
Right.
There's,
All right.
there's no 30, 40. my
It's
boat is
38. It's 38 and a half
6 inches.
feet.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
request is to put it in the center of the lot. Does that seem reasonable to everyone? That way your view is not as obstructed. You know, honestly, your view is more obstructed by his house than it is by the.
Let's move the house.
Yeah, he's got a
Can we just shift the house to the left?
Okay, so he has a 3-story house, and he's unwilling to move it to the west side because he doesn't want his any part of his boat, his luxury boat that he's going to enjoy, not me. He doesn't want any part of that to obstruct
Would
his
you invite
view.
No, I'm
but
losing part of it by putting it there. I would just want to preserve a piece of the intercoastal, and that's why it was a compromise with you.
Right.
Is
So
there a
what
way-
I think
I'm
has been
not
offered
there.
is to move it to the center of the property so it obstructs his view more substantially than it does at its current location.
Yes.
And it continues to obstruct your view. So both of your views are going to be obstructed by locating into the center of the property. Ma'am, I think this is about the best compromise you're going to get.
You're asking me, what about Dan, who lives
It
right
doesn't
next
obstruct
door?
his view. You're going to look at the boat on the other side of the canal, whether it's there or whether it's there. Okay.
Could you come up? I can't hear what
Yeah,
you're
please,
saying.
yeah.
Please come on
Thank
up.
you.
Dan, here, take this with you.
No,
Oh, there is?
come up to the
Okay, thank
microphone.
you.
Now, you are 2 houses
can ask
down,
me.
correct?
I know it is. Well, everyone's talking.
So, yes, this is a big party.
So Dan, again, you're on that trapezoidal lot?
We're in the trapezoidal lot. So
Okay.
from an angle and from the house,
I'm so impressed, trapezoid. Going back to
trapezoid, that's a
math.
good.
Okay, so what are we saying here, gentlemen?
I'm saying it's not just her view. It's also we already have the 16-foot incursion into the waterway via the dock, which already obstructs the view.
Right.
Again, we've all like the current owners didn't do that. It's consistent with code. We're talking about now adding another 12 feet to that. So yeah, it does obstruct our view, and that does further obstruct our view. And obviously, the further west it goes, that ameliorates her concerns. It also does ours.
12. Where do you get to 12 feet?
The width of the
What is
boat,
that,
the beam of the boat.
Is that what the width is?
It's
12.
11 feet, 6 inches.
11 feet.
You
So
know,
it's
it would, by the time you put the motors or whatever on the poles, that turns 12 feet.
But sir,
12
your house is so far away from it that your view is nowhere near obstructed by anything that would be built there.
no, our house faces directly diagonally through the thing, and again,
Right.
given
You have
the
a
fact
great
that
view of the intercoastal.
we love it.
No,
It's
it
the
does-
reason
it does-
we moved there.
it
but
does
we
affect
can
it to some extent.
It does. It does. I'm under oath. I would not tell you that we're obstructed were it not, but it is.
But again, I think the point is if we shift it to the west, then I believe for everybody involved, it will obstruct it less than where it is. Is that a fair statement?
That's correct. It would also obstruct
Correct.
it less if we were to not have to go an additional 4 feet out and kind of work within the existing dockage. That's
Understood.
There. But
Understood. Okay.
Mayor, if the boat is only 38 feet, why can't this operate within the 25 feet that's allowed without the waiver?
It's because it's the beam, the width.
Yeah,
Because the dock itself is.
It's the dock. It is the dock that was built there that's bigger. It's not a wood dock. It's a cement dock with pilings and
We
the
can't
whole,
remove the
whole
dock.
shebang.
Oh, no, I know.
You
It's a big dock. We have the photos in Exhibit 1.
You know, and as far as affecting their view, if I have to put the boat in the water there, it's still going to do the same thing. The only difference is with the lift, it's going to be a little higher. But
Well,
if
it's
it's
at more at
riding in
eye
the
level.
water, it's still going to affect their view. And I'm completely within my rights to have it in the water.
Well, that's true.
Mayor,
Yeah.
is there a time factor here? Is there an urgency? When I entered into the meeting this evening, I was really hoping that we would be able to have a deferral so that the neighbors can work this out. I don't want to see folks, arguing or debating with each other. I really think this can be worked out. I just don't know if it can be worked out this moment. But there are other neighbors to consider.
Well, we have just I think two choices here, either to grant the waiver or not grant the
Why
waiver.
can't we defer this so that people can still?
Oh, wait a minute. Let me finish. And if we grant the waiver, we can grant the waiver with conditions as to where the lift can go. It could either go to the west, to the middle, or to the south, or to the east. I mean, we have.
Well, we can't have it go to the east.
Okay, so that's not an option then. So it's just either to
But
the
it's a matter of
center-
how far to the west. We haven't
Right,
been
it doesn't
able.
have to be one extreme. It could be like 2/3 to the west or something. There could be.
Well, so the point is, we could either not grant the waiver, and that ends it, or we could grant the waiver with the condition that it be somewhere between the middle and the west of the dock. I think that's where we're at right now. So we're looking at feet right now. We're trying to negotiate a certain amount of feet to the center or to the west of the site. So.
Well, listen, Mr. Mayor, one quick question. On both sides, is anything time sensitive on your end?
Well, he wants to use his boat.
I mean, like and how about on your, I mean, if Mr. Glassman's suggestion that we wait a little bit just to give you a chance to work it out, is that going to be a hardship waiting another meeting?
Yeah, I would like to work it out. But at the same time, I want to say I've been at this over a year, paying for a boat to sit in a lot that I can't use.
For another 2 weeks?
I bought the boat in September.
Steve,
Brand new boat.
Steve, what do you think? One more meeting or what?
Mayor, I've asked if we could defer this so that people can work this out.
So I have no objection to defer. Are you making a motion to defer?
Well, I would, yes, because I really think that, I don't like negotiating from the dais. I don't like this kind of, everything should be spelled out a little bit more.
Well, these are opportunities. There's been a lot of misinformation. I agree with you.
I understand. But to me, it still works better, unless there is such an incredible sense of urgency. I think that it would behoove us to let the neighbors have a meeting, figure this out, have an exact location of where this lift would go. In other words, come back to us with all of the specifics, and then we can judge, and we can act.
Hey, you're the district commissioner. If you're moving to defer, do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay,
Yeah,
it's been
I'll
moved and
second his
seconded. All right, let's call the roll.
This is to defer now, not to.
Just to defer.
Just to defer.
Yeah.
Are we deferring to a specific meeting, or?
Can we defer it to the next meeting, or do we have to wait?
Do you need more than 2 weeks? You have either February 6th or February 20th.
They should be able to work it out within the next meeting.
February 6th?
Yeah, they either will or won't by 2 weeks from now.
Yes. And by the way, Mayor, I did want to also say I've had this conversation with staff. I find the 3 days notice not sufficient. And I know that's the Broward County code that we adopt, but people have very busy lives. I just don't understand why we would expect folks to get a letter. Not everyone opens the letter as soon as they get it in the mail. And then they see that there's a 3-day notice for a Marine Advisory Board meeting. I think that we need to visit that issue as well. I think that neighbors on an issue like this or others really need to have a little bit more advance notice so that they can go to a meeting and understand all of the ramifications. That's all.
All right, but right now we're just moving to defer to February
till
6th.
February 6th.
Okay, there's been a second.
Okay.
All right. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes. So we don't have to close public hearing on a motion. We're just deferring the whole thing, right? And public hearing remains open, correct? Yes. Yeah, okay. So that motion is approved, and we'll revisit this on February 6th. Will you be able to visit with us, Mr. Dunkel, at the February 6th?
Absolutely, if I'm still awake.
Okay.
along with your wisdom of the ages.
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like, when this comes back, if it's going to be in the center or 2/3, that we have an accurate drawing, because there's so much in dispute on that.
Yes.
I would like to be able to have that drawing in front of
And
us.
could you take your tape measure and measure the length of the boat for us?
No.
Waterway.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and everyone for coming tonight and speaking.
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Kearns. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Ullman.
you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, we'll take it out, yeah. PH3?
Yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
okay.
That's just.
Okay. Oh, wow, a long time ago. What aisle were you on?
Yeah, we also met you at the homeowners meeting, on the street there.
Yes, that was nice. All right, we'll
Meet all
get
my
you your
best friends
lift.
at block
We'll get you
parties.
that lift. We will.
We'll get this done.
We're going to jump to PH3 because this will be quick so that people don't have to wait through PH2. It's a public hearing, an ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations, Section 47-11.10, list of permitted and conditional uses, commercial recreation. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduce.
I have no one who signed up to speak. Anyone wish to speak on this item? There being nobody, we don't have to close public hearing on this, do we? We do. Do I hear a motion to close public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, public hearing is now closed on page 3. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida's Unified Land Development Regulations, Section 47-11.10, list of permitted and conditional uses, commercial recreation district to replace the terms shooting center with the terms indoor firearms range, providing for correction of scrivener's errors, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and repeal and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and PH.
You're not on.
Yes, and PH3 is now approved. Let's also jump to OFR 1, first reading an ordinance amending subsection 20-110 and repealing section 20-110, parens A.1, parens 11 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale. This is the first reading. No one has signed up to speak. Would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
It's been introduced. Please call the roll.
In ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending subsection 20-110, parens A1-5, and repealing subsection 20-110, parens A1-11 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, thereby amending eligibility for the General Employees Retirement Plan's Deferred Retirement Option Program for certain employees and amending the drop account earnings rate and providing for severability, providing repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions and an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and so OFR 1 is now approved on first reading. Now we'll jump back. This will be our last item, PH2. This is a public hearing on a resolution approving a sublease agreement for city-owned property located at 501 Seabreeze Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, pursuant to Section 8.13 of the city charter to the International Swimming Hall of Fame Peninsula, ISHOF, LLC. We don't need any disclosures, but we'll now open public hearing. One person has signed up to speak, but for questions only.
Mayor, I just want clarification that we do not need disclosures on this.
We do not need disclosures.
Okay.
Jennifer
Thank
Bales
you.
Drake, you're here? Yeah, there you are, for questions, okay. All right, so does anyone have any questions regarding this resolution?
Should we close the public hearing? You said there's no one. Do we have to close it?
We could do that, yeah.
Motion to
Right.
close the hearing?
Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, so public hearing is now closed on PH2. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Resolution's been introduced. Oops. Anyone have any questions?
I do have questions.
Absolutely.
Oh, me too.
Vice Mayor?
Could someone explain what the changes are in the sublease?
Okay, so Lynn? How are you? Nice to see you. Do you have a summary of what the changes are that are being offered tonight?
Actually, Lynn Solomon, Assistant City Attorney. Actually, Mayor, I do not. But this is the iShaw Peninsula LLC is a wholly owned subsidiary of the International Swimming Hall of Fame. So under this structure, the International Swimming Hall of Fame gets the museum, the cafe, and the VIP suites. iShaw Peninsula LLC gets everything else. So essentially, this lease is the same as the prior lease. The revenue sharing lease space versus non-lease space revenue is the same. It's just what portions of the site the two entities will control. And in fact, and I guess the real big ticket issue here is the aquarium would be the sublease for iShop Peninsula LLC.
So all the things that we have been told, the restaurant, the aquarium, and all that, that's all going to be in the east building or the west building. That's the west building, correct?
Mhm.
Right. And so that's all going to be run by iShaw Peninsula LLC, correct? All right. And then the operations that will take place in the east building are still going to be under the auspices of the International Swimming Hall of Fame, Inc.?
Not exactly.
No.
Can I explain?
Yeah, please step up.
Hi, Mario Caprini from Hall of Fame Partners. So the two leases, the first one is for the museum only. The second one is for all of the subtenants, and the reasoning for that is not for iShaw to lose their 501c3 of doing other businesses than the museum. So in the east building, there is a cafe, there are office spaces. These are all going to be subleases to the Peninsula LLC. In the west building, you have restaurants, you have an event center, you have parking. That's all going to be subleases of Peninsula LLC. So the museum only has the museum. All of the rest is under the other LLC.
So in order to maintain the charitable purpose of the International Swimming Hall of Fame entity, you're not taking on any commercial activity.
Correct. That's
Okay.
per the advice of their attorney,
Okay.
in coordination with all the other attorneys.
So to answer the Vice Mayor's question, are there any changes being suggested tonight that have already not been approved?
None.
There are
So
no changes.
let me interrupt with it. Hold on. So the revised language that I got today, Greg, I just want to clarify that. So we have some changes to section 2 on the reso. So is that what we're voting tonight? Does it incorporate those changes?
So those changes, you have to ask for those right now and bring those up.
Okay.
And you're going to say?
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. I just want to make sure. So one of the requested changes, Mayor, my fellow commissioners, has to do with more clarifying language as it relates to the aquarium, and that's included in the amended resolution. Does everybody have a copy of that?
No.
I do not have a copy of that.
No, and it would be nice if the district commissioner was ever given some of this information, city manager, that I have to hear this now for the first time. Seriously?
We were just able to get that right before the meeting.
Well,
So
obviously.
in our agenda review meeting with Commissioner Herbst, he expressed to our office his desire to make these amendments. So in preparation for the meeting, we've prepared a draft that contains this language in case he was going to introduce it. So that is the reason why it was
And
not
I'm supposed to
distributed.
just study this now and know it. You know what the irony is? The irony is Commissioner Herbst often complains about us getting pertinent information at the last minute and not having the time to review it or study it for an issue, and yet that's exactly what's happening here to me
Well,
and to my
we can
colleagues.
defer this until another meeting.
Well, I just don't understand why what's good for the goose is not good for the gander, and I don't understand why. When was your meeting with Commissioner Herbst, Mr. Spence?
Oh, it was the agenda review.
When was this? What time? When? Yesterday?
On Monday, yes.
Yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Today's Tuesday.
Well, this is a proposal by Commissioner Herbst. This is not coming from the management.
No, I understand.
Okay.
You're missing my point, but that's okay. What time was that meeting?
Sir, just to clarify, so when we have a resolution, any commissioner can amend those resolutions.
Of course.
We've had an issue in the past with our office providing the exact terminology that the commissioners have asked to amend in the past. The commissioner didn't request that we amend or provide an amended resolution. We thought to make sure that we captured the intent that we provide a draft resolution. So that is why this document has been prepared. The document was not prepared at the request of the commissioner, but he did indicate that he had a desire to amend the resolution.
Splitting hairs, but that's okay. What time was your meeting with Commissioner Herbst?
2 o'clock, 2 p.m.
2 o'clock. Well, I'm sorry, but if that was at 2 o'clock yesterday, we could have received this page and a half earlier than now, this very moment.
Well, what exactly?
And what other changes? And yeah, let's get an explanation of the reasons and what's behind this, so we can be as transparent as possible. Because I'd like to know.
Yeah, the attorneys finished this today, and also need to be dialogue with the proposer to see if he was amenable to these changes as well. All that was happening earlier today, even during our conference meeting as well.
So let's take this. Can you go through this this resolution that you just handed out, paragraph by paragraph, and explain the rationale for it? And then I'd like to hear from the applicant their feelings about this, but I'd also like to hear from Commissioner Herbst the reason why.
This merely seeks to add a requirement that the sublease will not take effect until they present a written sublease between Fort Lauderdale Aquarium and iShop Peninsula LLC, with delegated authority to the city manager to approve that written sublease.
So it adds another layer of protection for the city, that the city manager is going to have the discretion to review that lease. It's not going to be an automatic acceptance. The city manager has the authority to enter into negotiations for that lease.
Not to negotiate.
Well, to either accept or to reject.
The negotiation will be between iShop Peninsula and Fort Lauderdale Aquarium or any other subsequent owner. Once that negotiation between the private parties are done, they will then present that to the city manager for his review and approval based on market rate rents and other commercially reasonable terms.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's another. I think Commissioner Herbst is just trying to enter into another level of protection for the city.
Well, I'm not seeing it like that. I'm seeing it like, okay, so then what happens if that entity goes away or something happens to that entity? And we really want an aquarium here.
It doesn't have to be Fort Lauderdale Aquarium.
It doesn't have to be.
No.
So this is not specifically pinning us down to one aquarium person.
That is correct.
And I want to hear that. I need to hear from the applicant about this resolution, and also if they've had a chance to review this, and if everything is cool. Because if everything is cool with everybody, I'm okay. I just don't want to see us be pinned down to just one aquarium owner. Because God forbid something happens to that one person or that one entity, then we're in trouble. And that's just not the way to proceed here. I think that we have to have the options to be able to just make sure we have an aquarium. And I don't care who that aquarium person is. That's my main concern. So I want to hear that I am justified in being nervous about it. And I want to hear that you're okay with this language as it's written. I have not had a chance to read this. I'm not an attorney, but I need to have assurances that this is not just to say we got one guy only that can do this aquarium, and if he doesn't come forward or if something happens, there's no aquarium. That's my fear here.
Okay. Commissioner, that language is in the third line. If you see it, it says other owner, other owner or operator of the aquarium. So that addresses your specific concern. The third line very clearly says the existing aquarium or other owner and or operator of the aquarium on terms and conditions, so forth and so on. So I believe that addresses your concerns.
And is that true for the applicant?
Well, I'd like to elaborate a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
So just to set the record, we are in very good terms with the aquarium tenant. I believe we've become friends. Rich Waltzer and I are working together with Corey and all of the teams. As a matter of fact, we met as early as yesterday where he helped us identify parking solutions. So I think everybody's working in good faith. We did have a concern on the verbiage, and I think our attorneys have solved it. We just want the openness for you guys to listen to the solution, which is not a complicated one. and then we'll be able to hopefully clarify this. But initially, when I first read it, my concern was that it was only tied to one operator. And I called Rich. I said, Rich, I love you, brother, but what happens if you get hit by a bus? He goes, well, you'll be dealing with my wife. I said, what if my wife doesn't want to run an aquarium? He goes, oh, Caprini, you're right. So that's how we ended our conversation like less than 4 hours ago. So
that my concern is a little justified.
It is. It is. So I think the intent is good. I think we just need to clarify. And now I'd like to have our attorneys maybe step up
And by the way,
explain the legality.
city manager, I was just told that this meeting with Commissioner Herbst was at 2 o'clock yesterday when these concerns were brought up. What
Yes.
time was my meeting with you?
It's at 4 o'clock.
I met with staff at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
You, Susan Grant, everyone that seems to know about this. 2 hours after you met with Commissioner Herbst. I'm the district commissioner for this project. And 2 hours later, after you met with Commissioner Herbst, you could not give me a heads up that this was coming down the road?
Actually, he couldn't. It would violate sunshine.
No, I understand. But without violating sunshine, you couldn't even give me a heads up that we're working on a clarification, or you could not, there was no way without violating sunshine that you could just give me a heads up?
Because legally, we needed to know if it could be done. And on top of that, we needed to also consult with Mr. Caprini and his team.
Yeah. Well,
and
can't you not violate sunshine by just not mentioning a commissioner's name, or you can't just bring up an issue and say there's more to flesh out here, and you can't educate me at all?
Technically,
at all.
And also, the meeting started at 2 o'clock. It didn't end at 2 o'clock. We began at 2 o'clock.
But it
We
was
didn't end till
before
much
my
later.
meeting. That's my point.
Yes.
Well, I was relying on the city attorney's office to just determine what can be done.
You were trying to vet the request first.
Yeah,
of all.
I can't say that it was going to be done or not. I mean, I'll tell you that in a precaution and to be very cautious of violating sunshine law.
Yes.
I am very strict at what you tell me. I don't share. And until we were able to resolve this during the conference meeting, that's when we got a green light that this is something that could be done. If there was no green light, this would have been presented as
Okay,
it
so
was before.
speaking of the green light, so this is for the development team. So obviously we've had some changes because they've been talking to you since today, some point in time, right?
Today.
All right, I have a question for you. Please give me an honest answer. The first resolution that was put before you, how was that worded? In other words, was this all about just protecting and making sure that we did business with just one person for the aquarium?
I don't know the intent, but originally it appeared that way. The language was put in that said or other owner and or operator. We wanted the word of an aquarium instead of the aquarium, because here's the developer's intent. My name's Jennifer Bellstrake. I'm with Becker Law. I represent HOFP. We had asked to put an instead of the aquarium because here's the intent of the developer. The developer wants an aquarium. The city wants an aquarium.
Right.
If something were to happen to FLA, then we want to say we're going to have another aquarium operator. So
Why don't you put the word "an aquarium" as opposed to operator of the aquarium?
that's what we would like to have put in there.
Yes.
I think that makes more sense.
Much more sense, but I still would like an answer to my question. The first version of this that you were given, did it have any of these changes at all, or were you basically given a version that said, we have to have this aquarium with that operator?
There wasn't this language wasn't in there. There was no redlining. It was only the resolution to accept the sublease. It did not have any mention of the aquarium. The first resolution did not. Then
So then what was
Lynn-
the purpose then of the resolution? What was the difference? In
the
other words, what
city
changed?
sent it to us with all the red line. This is the city's language.
Right, but what I'm trying to get at is, obviously, this is all new, this resolution.
They wanted to make it conditional that the aquarium would be in the lease. So they wanted to make the iShoff lease contingent. We can't have the iShoff lease contingent.
Contingent on what?
on having
The
this aquarium.
FLA aquarium.
The,
So,
the FLA aquarium.
Right.
In other words,
Original-
just that one person.
Let me interrupt because this was my request. So please let's not mischaracterize what I
Well,
asked.
I'm
I'm
asking questions, but I guess I'm just stopping.
Well, you're
now.
asking the wrong person. You should be asking me instead of them. So I was the one who asked for this. What I said is I want an aquarium to be part of this deal. As far as I'm concerned, based on my analysis of the business plan, I have never supported it because I didn't think that the city guaranteeing $190 million of debt based on restaurants and offices made any sense. And so when we developed the idea of incorporating an aquarium into it, it to some extent mollified my concerns that the city is going to be on the hook for this. Because you remember, we are guaranteeing almost $200 million of debt on this project. And it's based on the rental income that it generates. And so I want to have a high degree of assurance that the rental income will be sufficient, that we don't have to use general fund tax dollars to pay the debt service. And so I said, I want protections in there that say we were going to have an aquarium. How it got drafted with "the" and "an" and that is pedantic and beside the point. It is designed to have the aquarium be a ongoing component to this. This is no different than what we did when we told Bahia Mar, you must have a boat show in there or we will not approve your lease. It's guaranteeing that we are going to have a rent-paying customer that will help ensure the viability of this project over the next 50 years. That was my intent, nothing more, nothing less, not trying to say that it has to go to any particular operator. The aquarium makes this project work, and I want to see that spelled out in the agreement.
Yes.
That was
And
my
I'm-
intent.
I'm not debating, and I'm not debating that at all. I agree with you. I was very pleased to see when the aquarium was added to the mix, and I agree with you how that will affect the debt. I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just saying that I want to make sure that this was just not to make sure that we only were dealing with one aquarium entity. So I'm still wondering, why does this even say Fort Lauderdale Aquarium LLC? Okay. Why doesn't it just say sublease by and between iShop Peninsula LLC and any or whatever owner of
Well,
an
you could
aquarium?
just change the word "the" to "and" and you're good.
Yeah, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with this because I already know what happened. I could read the handwriting on the wall, and I see how this happened, and I see obviously that you were probably presented with something originally that just said just this guy. And
no.
no one else.
Originally, I want to clarify. The original resolution just had the commission approving the sublease because it's with a different entity. It's not with iShop Inc.
Right.
It's with the iShop Peninsula. So it had nothing. The aquarium lease was not mentioned at all in the original resolution. What was presented to us was the language in the red. They originally had the definition FLA under both the FLA and the other operator, and we asked them to move it, which Lynn moved it, the FLA, and then we have asked that the word "the" be changed to "and" to be sure that everybody understands we want an aquarium. We're dealing right now with FLA. The negotiations, those are ongoing. They seem to be moving fine. We have no guarantees in life. So we just need to know that if we were not able to get FLA for whatever reason that were to occur, that we could go get another aquarium. So that's what we wanted to do. We didn't want the whole project to fail over one aquarium
And that makes
operator.
sense. So let's look at this language together because before I can vote on this, I need to make sure you're comfortable with these exact words. So Fort Lauderdale Aquarium LLC, FLA, are you good with "or other owner and or operator of the aquarium"?
Of an aquarium.
An
We're
aquarium.
going to strike the word "the."
So "the" is going to change to "an"?
A-N, yes.
And then you're good with the rest of it?
Yes. One thing I do want to make clear, every sublease has to be approved by the city just by the comprehensive agreement.
Right.
It's very clear, though, that the sublease that you approve has to be executed prior to us executing the aquarium lease because that's the order of ability to sublease. So it would be upon the approval of the city manager, then it becomes effective it would be signed, and then we would enter into the FLA or whatever aquarium we have.
Yes.
And by the way, we do have a binding LOI with.
Can you push the button underneath?
Yeah, the button.
It's up.
It's
Just
on.
need to pull it closer.
Okay, close.
We do have a binding LOI that we're following, and we're just working it through to get to a lease. And
That's
maybe,
good.
Andrew Blasey, I'm another attorney. I'm representing Hall of Fame Partners as well. Actually, I'm the lawyer that's been actually charged with drafting up these subleases. And I think a very good point was made by Commissioner Herbst that you guys are looking for an aquarium, and the concern over the city ultimately having to pay the freight if the rent doesn't cover it. Anything that this commission were to do at this point while we're in negotiations to make it appear that we're bound to any one party would only make it more difficult to conduct those negotiations, which are ongoing right now. So to Commissioner Glassman's point, if you did want to extract FLA, because we're in the mix of negotiations right now, and just leave the resolution to an aquarium, that would certainly be better for everybody involved, because it wouldn't necessarily make those negotiations that we're conducting now more difficult to conduct, which in the end would only hurt the city if somebody felt more empowered that they were further along than they were, and that would make us potentially a little bit harder to negotiate the most favorable lease. Which we're in the midst of doing right now, and I think we have every expectation that it's going well, and
It's
that
going well.
we're going to conclude that, but we don't want to give anybody any false expectations. We want to negotiate the best and most favorable lease that we can for all of us here.
So you're saying that actually your preference would be if we actually remove Fort Lauderdale Aquarium and just said an aquarium.
Yes, I think that was a brilliant suggestion.
Because then your negotiations are more on an even par, because that entity doesn't feel like the gun is to your head,
Or that they have a leg, somehow
or
have
that they have a leg up on anyone else.
Yes, I think that's a brilliant suggestion. It makes the drafting and the negotiating life that we have much easier.
Well, that makes sense to me. I just, because, yes, why, we know that we want an aquarium, but we should not be giving favorable negotiation ability to someone by putting them in, naming them here, because then they have all of the negotiating power. And the city and you do not.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay. The mayor stepped away. I was going to make a comment also in regarding identifying FLA as the aquarium business that we would like to do operate this lease under. I agree. I do agree too that we should take away the name and just say aquarium, because it does, in a sense, I'm almost saying handcuff us to someone.
Right.
So if we could, I'm in agreement that we move in that direction to remove the name of the identified leasee, conversating leasee.
Thank you.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Oh, geez. Listen, I have a few questions, and it's going to be a few minutes. Let's go back and identify the players here. Obviously, the city of Fort Lauderdale, iShop, there's iShop Peninsula, iShop Partners. I guess technically iShop is International Hall of Fame, Inc. Is that the real name for iShop?
International Swimming Hall of Fame, Inc. is the 501c3.
And they're the nonprofit. Yeah. Now, if I understand correctly, we're obligated to rent it to iShop, or there's a problem. So iShop has to be the first one we rent it to.
Which you approved of.
Right. No, I know. I'm just trying to clarify things. And I'm going to follow the money in a few minutes. I just wanted to define the players. iShop Inc. then subleases it back to us. Then we sublease it.
No.
No.
Can we clarify one thing?
Yes.
Go ahead. Corey Olson, Hensel Phelps, part of the Hall of Fame Partners team. So what you're thinking of is Hall of Fame Partners is the single purpose entity name that the development team is using.
Okay.
So we're the promoter of the project
Right.
as a third party, fee developer, if you will. Okay, so that name maybe shouldn't have been Hall of Fame Partners because it seems to confuse things, but that's the development entity. So as Commissioner Herbst pointed out, the debt is really on the city, who has the first master facility lease, and then there's two subleases, one to iShop Museum, strictly for the museum pieces in the west building, and everything else is a sublease to iShop Peninsula that is the real estate arm of iShoff Inc.
Okay,
So you have these two entities in parallel where museum sits over here only doing 501c3 charitable operations, and then the other one is really the debt, it's really the revenue collection agent on behalf of the entire property
So where
to
does-
work the waterfall of the comprehensive agreement.
Okay, let's okay, so the difference between Hall of Fame iShop Peninsula and iShop Partners. I mean, I know
They're-
Peninsula.
So it's Hall of Fame Partners. HOFP, that's the development team only.
Hall of
okay?
Fame Partners.
That's,
Okay, so
that has
who's-
nothing to do with the International Swimming Hall of Fame. That was a name. That was a name chosen specifically for this project.
So who's Hall of Fame Peninsula then?
It's the International Swimming Hall of Fame Peninsula.
Wholly
That's
owned
a
subsidiary
wholly
of
owned of iShoff. You have two iShoff entities. iShoff Inc. is the museum. They wholly own iShoff Peninsula LLC so that they can operate the real estate arm.
Okay, so iShop itself cannot do that, but iShop.
Peninsula LLC
Peninsula can. So
Correct.
we're leasing it for $1 to you, to iShop.
To iShop.
iShop Inc. They're not leasing it back to us?
No.
There's two separate leases.
So here's the way it goes. There's a ground lease from the city to HOFP developers. So we're going to call HOFP the developers. So the city leases the ground to HOFP. HOFP builds the buildings and the improvements. And then they lease it back through a master facilities lease to the city. The city is then going to sublease it, all of the improvements under two subleases. City's going to lease the museum to the International Swimming Hall of Fame, Inc., the 50
Not profit, right, go ahead.
Right, the 501c3. The 501c3, so it won't lose its its tax exempt status, set up a wholly owned subsidiary named iShoff Peninsula LLC. That's the second sublease. They are going to lease all the remaining improvements. And then iShoff Peninsula, the second sublease, the lease that we're asking to have approved by the commission tonight, they'll go and they'll sublease it to the other, the restaurant, the offices, the vendors that are.
Okay,
The
Mr. Attorney,
aquarium.
again, there's a piece of connection missing here. We're leasing to iShop Inc.
And iShop Peninsula. The only
No,
reason
but
we.
iShop Partners are going
No. There's no international to theirs. They're HOFP.
The partners, okay.
They're the developer.
Okay, so the original lease is between the city.
And HOFP.
No. The original lease, the very first, the first thing is between the city and the International Hall of Fame, Inc. You said there's two, but there's one that starts it all.
There's a current lease that will be terminated, that Lynn's been working to terminate, with the International Swimming Hall of Fame, the 501c3 museum, that has to have a facility on this property, or technically the city could lose the property.
We lose it, so we have to lease it to you.
Yes.
And that's for $1.
No, not us.
No,
We are
no, excuse me, I keep calling you. We have to lease it for $1 a year to Inc. Let's just call it Inc., the nonprofit.
It's not, we don't have to, but there's a restriction that it has to be used for a International Swimming Hall of Fame.
Museum.
Is what the dedication is.
Okay.
All right,
So we had, because there's more than just a museum in this project, the 501c3, the Museum, Inc., had to set up a wholly owned subsidiary so that wholly owned subsidiary could carry on the commercial business.
And that's the development.
And that's what we're talking about today. That's all the tenants.
That's Peninsula, correct?
That's Peninsula.
Okay, so
iShop
Peninsula. So
Inc.
Peninsula is wholly owned by
iShop Inc.
Inc. Now, so they are. So wait. So So Inc. is leasing it to Peninsula.
No, HOFP is leasing it to the city. The city is the one, the city's leasing the facilities that are being built. The city is leasing one space for the museum for iShop. The city is leasing the other space, all the remaining facilities, to Peninsula so that the subtenants, the businesses, can go in.
Okay, so the piece that's going to the Peninsula isn't being run through Inc. at all?
No.
Okay, so we have a separate lease for Inc. for
Yes.
the museum piece of it.
Right.
And we have a direct lease to Partners that's not being run
No,
through Inc.
Peninsula.
at all. Peninsula, not Partners,
Right.
Peninsula. And you're the management part of it?
Yeah.
Yes, they're developers.
Okay. So there's no to the city, back to the city, and away again. It doesn't work that way. It's just city in two different directions.
Yeah.
Okay, that clears that up. I was under a misunderstanding. Let me ask you this. Let's follow some of the money here if we can, and that's something that I know we've done this before. I just want to get an idea of who gets what and where it goes to. What are the city now? Well, let me do it in a different order. What are we're paying? We have to pay mortgage. We're taking on that debt, almost $200 million in debt. We're taking out the loan to build this. The city is, correct? We're on the hook for that.
It's a master lease.
A
yes.
lease. And that's being built by
Pencil Phelps.
Being developed by Hall of Fame Partners, built
Partners.
by Pencil Phelps.
Partners, okay.
The developer.
We're putting the money and we're building the building and we're going to turn it over to you.
But we're taking on the risk. We're taking on the debt.
And we're bringing you the tenants to offset.
Oh, no, but no,
the
but
risk.
no. We're talking where it's coming from. We're going to say where it's coming back to. But in addition to payment, like what other payments, in addition to the money to build it, infrastructure, what else is the city on the hook for?
So when we were talking about the whole project,
Right.
nothing about how it's being built has changed. It's going to be developed in phases. First phase is infrastructure and the ocean rescue. Okay? That's the first part. Then there'll be the west building. That's the next part, which is the big building. That's where the museum will be. That's where the aquarium will be, the VIP suites, the training pool, those types of things.
Okay, but let me interrupt you for a second.
Yes.
Not any of that has been approved. The site plan still has to come to the
has to be,
commission.
yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Because the ocean rescue, we haven't yet even considered, and I'm concerned about the ocean rescue because you're going to block the silhouette of the dive tower, and that's something that concerns me and I think other members of the commission. So before we talk all about that, let's just take it one step at a time as to what we first envisioned so that we don't get confused now. Right now, we're just talking about the west building and the east building.
Well, infrastructure first,
Right,
then west building, then east building.
right. But the ocean rescue, we have never,
That's totally for the city. It's up to you.
if we want it,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
Now-
That was not.
Approve every phase.
Okay.
every
And we
bucket.
do approve every building, because
Yeah.
the site plan,
You can decide
Commissioner,
to stop.
Commissioner Sturman, we've nowhere near come to a site plan approval
No,
process
we have
yet.
to go through the permitting process. We have to go DRC. They haven't done that yet. We had to get through this process first.
Okay. Now, this might be the easier part of the two, and this is my last question, thank God, for both of you. Money coming back in, what do we get? The rents that we come in, who gets what?
Right, so this lease is set up revenue share-wise the exact same way as the museum lease. All leasing revenue comes back to the city, all of it. And then anything over $2 million comes back in. Anything after then the first $2 million. Yeah,
So
go
we
ahead,
get
go
paid-
ahead.
we get
Yeah.
paid back first.
Can I describe
Right,
let me
right.
just describe the waterfall real quick. And this is a bit of a moving target, right? I mean, we just redesigned the entire west building to incorporate the aquarium, so not all of that has yet been incorporated into our updated pro forma. But the deal that was cut as the basis of the comprehensive agreement that was approved in September is that all the lease-based revenues go to the city first. So even though Peninsula is the collection of the rents, Everything is immediately dedicated to the city. Okay, that also includes revenue share from some of the tenants. Okay, so they all have a floor. I make my $1 million floor of sales. Everything above $1 million, the next 3% of everything $1 million also goes to the city. Okay, those we consider those lease-based revenues. All lease-based tenants with those revenues go directly to the city. The next $2 million, wherever it comes from,
Entertainment or other things.
or others, goes to the city as well. Everything above that next $2 million is then split 50-50 between the city and iShop Inc.
iShop Inc., the nonprofit?
The nonprofit.
Okay.
That's how they're going to fund their operation.
That's
Now-
how they have to pay. They have to pay to
operate
operate
a
the
museum.
But aren't they
museum.
also benefiting from naming rights and things like that?
Yes, so they did have a small list of exclusions where they get to keep the money that they've earned within inside their walls.
Okay, so-
right. So you have this. Yeah, right.
I'm saying
There's-
for the naming rights for the competition or for.
Well, so it's basically if it's naming rights within the leased space of iShop Inc.,
Right.
that stays with the museum. If it's naming rights of the patio that's up on a public space,
Right.
that goes into the waterfall. If it's naming rights of the pools, the dive tower, whatever, that's in the waterfall.
The
It's
waterfall
just-
meaning what?
The waterfall is what I just described of.
Oh, yeah. Okay, waterfall,
Yeah.
yeah. How about things like parking and whatnot?
That's all in the waterfall.
There's other exclusions that the
The only
city-
thing inside, the only thing in the exclusions for iShop
John,
Inc.
yeah.
is money generated inside their walls of their
ticket sales.
what's the square footage now on the museum now that it's small?
15,000
So it's down to 15,000 square feet. So by incorporating the aquarium, we added 20,000 square feet of leasable space and also reduced the museum's space that basically was generating no revenue for you. So that's, yeah, go ahead.
It's excluded because they're paying rent.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, Susan, do you want to, what was that?
I was going to just let you know that the reason is it excluded is because they are paying rent on the space that they are using. So that's why the revenue that they generate inside that space is excluded from that waterfall.
They're paying rent to the city.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
paying rent
Okay.
to us. I
Okay.
think it was $1
Yeah,
million-ish.
Yeah, and
a year.
it really the rent of the core and shell itself is $1, right? But we are financing some of their tenant improvements. They have to pay their CAM fees, so they have obligations. So they're allowed to earn money where they have obligations.
Can I ask Commissioner Herbst a question? John? Last time this came up, you were going to go line by line, go through a bunch of things, sit down with them, and it was conditional. And I just want to know if you're the status of your overview.
Yeah, no, I think at this point, everything that we need to work out and resolve has been resolved. And when I was just looking at this, the only thing, as we discussed when I had my meeting with staff yesterday, that I just wanted to make sure that the provision for an aquarium was embodied within the agreement, because again, I think it's a key component for the overall success of the entire project, and I wanted to make sure that we enumerated that. And if there's going to be any change to that, if for whatever reason at some point an aquarium isn't feasible, then I think it needs to come back to us if we're going to approve any change, substantive change to the agreement. So that's the overarching direction here, I genuinely believe that the inclusion of the aquarium makes this a very viable project. And if that is going to change for any reason whatsoever, I want the commission to be able to weigh in on that change and make sure that it's acceptable to us.
And the development team concurs with that.
And is that a condition precedent to the whole deal?
Well, we would have to come back and, if for some reason an aquarium didn't work, we recognize we would have to come back in front of commission and say, hey, it's a different project than what you approved in
Right.
September, but we're at the 1 yard line.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
So-
that
so-
concludes
so-
my comments.
Conclusion remarks? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, all right, let's move forward on this. So are we in agreement that maybe we should just take out the company name of Fort Lauderdale Aquarium LLC and just put between iShop Peninsula LLC and an aquarium?
That would be the request of the development team.
Yes.
That's acceptable to me.
Is that cool? Okay, so why don't we do that? Commissioner Glassman, any other questions you have with regard to the item that's on the agenda?
No, I think that clears this up, and I think the language now is much better for us as a city and also for the applicant. So I'm good to go.
Okay. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
It's been introduced.
Yeah,
As amended.
As amended.
Okay, do we have to, we already closed public hearing. Okay, so as amended. Very good. Please call the roll.
And Lynn, Lynn, just to
Solomon?
confirm, the header didn't change at all, right? Okay, all right. Thank you. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, authorizing execution of a sublease pursuant to Section 8.13 of the City Charter of real property located at 501 Seabreeze Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33316 to Ishoff Peninsula LLC to be used for purposes consistent with the public good for a term of 30 years and subject to further terms and conditions, repealing any and all resolutions in conflict herewith, authorizing execution of same by the proper city officials and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Lynn, I just want you to read that language to me to make sure that I'm voting for exactly what we just said. Can you just read the paragraph there, at least that sentence, to make sure that you all have that on the record and we're all good?
You mean the red line language, Commissioner? This lease shall take effect upon the approval by the city manager of a written sublease by and between Ishoff Peninsula LLC and an owner or operator of an aquarium on terms and conditions, including without limitation, market rate rents and other commercially reasonable terms acceptable to the city manager in his sole discretion. The city manager is hereby delegated authority to approve the aquarium sublease and the lease as revised. And the lease shall be revised to incorporate this provision. I have to make a change to the lease as well.
Yes, and you said and an aquarium operator. Okay.
I deleted the name of the entity.
Okay, and then it just says after that, and an aquarium operator. Okay, thank you. Yes, my vote is yes.
Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
No.
Commissioner Herbst? Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that item is now approved.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Is there any further business of the commission? Mr. Attorney, you have no closed doors to announce? Okay, there being no further business, thank you folks for being here tonight. We appreciate your help in making this happen. This meeting is now concluded.